Ever wondered what happens when you'll get all you favorite adult fictions at one place? Yay, you heard it right! Welcome to my Patreon. Currently, we have more than 200+ stories collections. Exclusive, uncensored, 18+ fan fiction awaits you. Stories too bold for the mainstream, crafted for true fans. Dive into steamy world of Harry Potter, Naruto, and Deku. Untamed passion and raw power. Only on Patreon. Ready to unlock the secrets? Join now, link in the description.
Now, today, we are gonna see, what if Harry Potter was God od Alchemy? Join Patreon for early ACESS of Super Op stories, also adult and steamy Harry Potter stories too. Please subscribe this channel. Because definitely I will try my best to provide a valuable content for you all. Also check the description to support the original author for this beautiful creation. In the early morning, a ray of sunlight shines through the gaps in the curtains on the sleeping face of the teenager. Albert has not yet woken up, but will soon be awakened. The door to he stares on the second floor was quietly pushed open. The brown-haired girl stuck her head in, staring at the sleeping teenager on the bed with big brown eyes, and whispered, "Albert, it's time to get up." Seeing that the teenager on the bed did not respond, the girl pursed her small mouth in dissatisfaction, opened the door and walked in, with a British short-hair cat behind her. "Tom, please." Girl took the short-hair cat to the bed, gently picked up the cat's tail, and swept the boy's face twice. Originally, Albert, who was still asleep, stretched out the cat's tail that was open on his face. Opened his eyes to look at his naughty sister, reached out and covered a yawn, and said hello, "Good morning, Nia." Dad said, "Take us to London today." Nia blinked and looked at Albert and said, "Go and help you customize Eton College uniforms and buy the items on the list by the way." "Okay, I see. I change my clothes." Albert took another yawn, picked up the short-hair cat who was stretching its paws on the sheet. Put it on the ground, stretched his waist, and started changing clothes. "Then wash up and go to the living room for breakfast. You stayed up again last night." Daisy put hearty breakfast on the plate at Albert's table. "Son, we'd better move fast. Today's schedule is a bit full." Herb spread the letter sent from Eton College the other day on the table, with a proud smile on his face. It is well known that private schools in the UK are the place to train elites, and Eton College is one of the best. To enter this school, you must meet 2 points: talent and wealth. The Andersons belong to the middle class in the UK. The husband and wife run a law firm, and the family still has savings. As for Albert, he is a genius in everyone's eyes. He not only has excellent grades, but also participated in many inter-school competitions and won awards. Whether Albert is a genius in the eyes of people, only he himself knows. Genius? No, Albert never considered himself a genius. Albert has a big secret. He is a traverser. As for why he was named a genius, he himself was inexplicable. A child who doesn't know what the Rubik's Cube is, but can easily put together a messy third-order Rubik's Cube. In the eyes of most adults, this is a genius. Actually, he can make a Rubik's Cube because he has played it in a previous life and knows the secret of the Rubik's Cube, so he knows how to make it. As for how to maintain the image of a genius, Albert doesn't worry at all that he will be exposed, because he has the legendary golden finger. The Traverser has his own golden finger. And the online novel honestly does not deceive me. Speaking of this, when Albert was 7 years old, he found a panel suddenly appeared in his brain. The panel has 2 major functions: accepting tasks and skills plus points. Some quests are sometimes spawned. After completing the tasks, you can gain experience or skill points. Experience can be used to improve skills, and skill points are directly improved by level 1. Albert's first skill was proficiency in English. It took him many years to upgrade this skill to level 3. If you say that the English proficiency of ordinary British people is level 2, and ordinary English teacher is level 3, as long as the technical skills are added to max, Albert can become a genius scientist. Of course, Albert never wanted to be a scientist, or did he have such a desire in his previous life? In his last life, he liked to read books and eventually became an ordinary online novelist. Has written a few books. It can be regarded as a small savings. Life is carefree. Doing what I like every day. In other words, The last life was actually a salted fish. As for, how did he cross? Ashamed to speak. One day, he leaned on the sofa and watched Mr. Bean's movie. He took an apple and watched it. Because the movie was so funny, he forgot to chew food in his mouth, and was choked to death by apple chunks. 30 years old. After woke up again, he found that he had become a baby. After spending many years in this house, he raised a cat again, also named Tom. Of course, the name actually comes from that cat and mouse anime. When he was 7 years old, the game panel suddenly appeared, which made Albert start to doubt his life, and even once suspected whether he was an NPC in a certain game. Later, I never found a creature like the player, so I took the panel as a boon for the traverser. Linking crossing with golden finger is equal to a winner in life. Albert has no big ambitions. He feels that it is best for him to have a few relatio N ships in adulthood and have a simple and easy job after graduating from college. It is best to get married before the age of 30, and earn enough to squander 100 years of wealth, allowing him to spend the rest of his life freely and carefree. In order to realize such a future, Albert has his own plan. He is going to enter the American Wall Street after graduation, relying on the economic skills of the point to max, plus the memory of the past life. I believe that I can make a lot of dollars soon. However, panel skills are not easy to improve, especially after the second level. Each level requires a lot of experience. Albert needs to do tasks to earn experience and skill points, and being admitted to Eton College is one of the tasks. Son, what are you thinking? Herb cut the steak on the plate with a knife and looked at his son, who was in a daze. I'm thinking, what will I do in the future? Albert put the poached egg into his mouth and said after he swallowed it. Then what do you want to do in the future? Daisy asked curiously. The couple rarely heard their children mention their dreams. Finance. Albert said without hesitation. We thought you would want to be a scientist or an astronaut. You reading www.uakonchu.com. Anderson looked at each other. What is finance? Nia was very upset that she was excluded from the subject by her family. Finance is good for making money. Albert looked up. This time I bought a few books on economics, by the way, as an advance birthday gift. Son, don't mislead your sister. Only powerful guys can make money in this field. Herb's face twitched, and he clenched his fist and covered his mouth with a light cough. Moreover, our family is not poor. Okay, eat breakfast and stop talking nonsense. Daisy interrupted. Nia, remember to drink up all the milk. Oh, Nia didn't like milk very much. After rebirth, everything is very beautiful. He has a lovely sister, a harmonious family, a prosperous life, and a golden finger. That can lead him to the top of his life. If you say, the only thing that makes Albert depressed is definitely British food. Before, when it was said that Britain was a food desert on the internet, he was still dubious. After all, most British people like simple and comfortable life. However, after personal experience, I no longer doubt the authenticity of those descriptions. After finishing the meal, helping to tidy up the furniture and close the doors and windows, the Anderson family is ready to go out as a group. Albert just opened the door of Ford and was about to get into the back seat of the car, when suddenly he heard a surprised voice from Nia next to him. Look, is it an owl? The Andersons looked suspiciously in the direction of their daughter's fingers, and saw an owl flying towards this side. And when passing over the heads of the crowd, they threw a letter at Albert's feet. At this moment, the expressions on the Anderson family's faces froze. Owl, delivery. When did Owl also start part-time postman? Chapter 2. The past of the Anderson family. No one moved. Everyone froze in place for at least half an hour. Well, it was actually only about 10 seconds. Albert bent down and picked up the pale yellow envelope. It was an unstamped letter with a line written in emerald green ink. He read it out softly. Tybee Avenue, 19, at the entrance, received by Mr. Albert Anderson. When Albert read this text, he discovered that he actually triggered a task. The Wizarding Way. You have the potential to become a wizard, but you are not yet qualified. Now you have a Pressio. As opportunity to go to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and become a student. Rewards 10,000 experience, 2 skill points, and wizard blood +1. Wizard blood. Albert was stunned. What the asterisk is this? 2 skill points are very tempting. It is only 1 point to become a student of Eden College, and Albert has only got 3 skill points after saving up for so many years, and he is not willing to use it. However, what's even worse is that this is actually the world of fiction. The magical world in Harry Potter novels. Albert turned the envelope over and saw the Hogwarts shield coat of arms, with the capital H on it. Surrounded by a lion, an eagle, a badger and a snake. Mom, will the zoo train owls to be postmen now? Nia stared curiously at the owl staying nearby. Nia, I don't think anyone will send a letter with an owl. At least normal people don't. Maybe, this is just a prank. Daisy looked at her husband, saw Herb cursing brows, and asked, "What's wrong, my dear, is it time for me to go out?" "Nothing, Albert, show me the letter," Herb whispered. "Oh, here." Albert gave the envelope to his father. "Honey." Daisy was a little upset. Herb didn't pay attention to the displeasure on his wife's face. Quickly opened the envelope, took out the parchment inside and glanced at it, and said, "Children, it seems that our plan is going to be postponed." "Dear Herb, what happened? What's the content of the letter?" Daisy felt that her husband was a little abnormal, and her tone couldn't help getting worse. "Dad, what's in the letter?" Nia couldn't help asking, but Albert, who received the letter, didn't respond much. "Go back to the living room, Daisy." Herb closed the car door heavily and returned to the living room with his family. After the entrance door was closed, the owl delivering the letter still did not leave. "Dear Herb, you'd better give me a proper explanation." Daisy looked very angry. She couldn't wait to see her son put on Eden College uniform. "Dad, what is the content of the letter? Read it out for everyone. I also want to know who can predict where I appear." Albert's face didn't have much mood swings, of course he knew it. "What's the matter with the letter? If you haven't experienced the crossing and panel incidents, you might be shocked when you see the letter. But the first 2 times I was shocked and found myself living in the world of a novel. It doesn't seem too strange to think about it. What's more, he has read the bestseller Harry Potter and once wrote one. This fellow. At that time, I checked a lot of information and I still had some understanding of the worldview of this novel. Then I will read it." Herb looked at his son who was as calm as ever, and read the content on the parchment. Principal of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Albus Dumbledore, President of the International Union of Magic, President of the Wizarding Association, First-Class Magician of Sir Merlin. Hogwarts School. Daisy stared in surprise, because she had already guessed what it was, an admission letter. Magic, is there really magic in this world? Nia's face was filled with excitement. "I want to learn magic too, I want to go to a magic school." "Hate Albert, let me go." Nia looked at her brother very dissatisfied. She was going to go over to read the letter, but Albert stopped her. "Nia, let my father finish my faith." Albert motioned to his father to continue reading the letter, and took the angry mother to sit down by the way. "Son, I will never let you go to Hog." Daisy was very angry. She thought her husband might know something. Herb coughed slightly and continued reading. "Dear Mr. Anderson, we are happy to inform you that you have been approved to study at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Enclosed is a list of required books and equipment. The semester is scheduled to start on September 1st. We will be waiting for your owl before July 21st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Vice Principal, Female." Eber finished his faith, and then handed the letter to his son. Albert glanced at it and handed it to his curious sister. Nya took the letter and ran to her mother Daisy. After dying the content of the letter sentence by sentence, Daisy said every word. "I would never agree to let Albert go to this kind of school. No, there must be someone playing on us. Maybe we should call the police right away and catch that pesky rascal. Mom, did the owl waiting for you on the letter let us write back to them?" Nia said suddenly. Daisy did not speak, but stared at her husband with oppressive eyes. Albert asked, "Dad, do you know something?" Not knowing, Herb reached out his hand to his head, and seemed to be caught in a short memory. "When I was about the same age as you, my father, that is, your grandfather. To me, I was disappointed not to receive a letter from Hogwarts. I once asked my father what Hogwarts was, and he only said that it was a school. Later, once my father was drunk. I asked why he wanted me to go to Hogwarts. He only said he was a dumb gun, but I don't know what the word means. Herb's tone was very low, and he remembered that time when his father cried. I think, now I know what Hogwarts is. Father knows that his grandson has received a letter from Hogwarts, he will be very happy. Albert knows what dumb cannon means, of course, but he never really thought that he had something to do with a wizard. In other words, there is no similar skill in his skill bar, otherwise he would have noticed it. Yes, I should write to him. No, call, he will definitely be very happy. Herb suddenly said, as if planning to call his father. Eber Anderson. Daisy exclaimed, Albert should go to Eton College. He will achieve something we can't imagine. Instead of going to a school that we have never heard of, you know. Concerning his future, I will never allow you. Mom, we have not yet determined whether magic exists. Albert stretched out his hand to grab the mother who was about to run away, and softly comforted, didn't the letter say the owl waiting for you? Maybe, we should write a letter to each other, let then someone from Hogwarts. School came to prove whether there is magic, if they can't prove it, then it's a lie. Well, son, I agree with you, and let the **** school prove the truth of this letter. Daisy clenched her fist and shook it vigorously. Wait and see, I must call the police. Catch those crooks and let them squat in prison for a few years. Chapter 3. Visit. Eber called his father. The old man was emotional after listening and said that he would come to visit his grandson in the near future. Daisy was still angry. With Albert's comfort, she didn't quarrel with her husband. This female lawyer couldn't understand why her husband, who had always been smart, suddenly became so stupid. Deceived by a silly joke, he plans to make a joke about the future of his baby son. In fact, everyone finds it very interesting. After all, magic only exists in legends. Nia even pestered Albert to make him magical. I won't. Albert stretched out his hands helplessly. Actually, Albert knows some spells, such as the simplest lightning spell, but without the help of a magic wand, it is probably not used, so Albert did not try. At least, he will not try it in front of other people, otherwise how can he explain it? Nia, there is no magic in this world at all. Those are all deceptive tricks. Daisy said seriously, she didn't want her daughter to be full of weird thoughts. Albert, the letter says that you can take a pet to school. Are you going to take Tom to school with you? Nia didn't care about her mother's words, and picked up the shorthair cat to be beside Albert. I won't consider this issue until it is confirmed that magic exists. Albert said solemnly. Of course, these words are actually to appease Mother Daisy. She now looks like a time bomb, which may explode at any time. An owl flew into the living room from the window and threw a piece of parchment on the table. Wrote on the parchment, I will visit by 3:20 Professor McGonagall. 3:20. Albert took the parchment, looked at the clock and murmured, it's still a minute away. Very good, I will definitely expose the tricks of those liars. At 3:20, the doorbell outside rang. The Anderson family looked at each other, and finally Herb Anderson, the head of the family, went to open the door, and Nya followed. Opening the door, Herb found an elderly woman standing outside her door. Professor McGonagall. Herb looked at the woman in front of him suspiciously, and said dryly, oh, well, come in, Albert is in the hall, if you can prove the existence of magic. You can magic? Nia asked with a probe. I'm here for this. Professor McGonagall is very good at dealing with this kind of things. She has experienced many similar things. Some Muggle families will have similar questions. What? Muggle? Anderson's expression froze, and he repeated what he had just heard. The other party calls himself a Muggle. Muggles are ordinary people who can't make magic. After McGonagall entered the living room, his eyes fell on the only boy in the room. Hello, Mr. Anderson. Hello, Ms. McGonagall. Albert looked at the witch in front of him. Professor McGonagall's appearance was indeed different from the movie, although his memory in this area was very vague. We hope you can prove the existence of magic. Daisy served Professor McGonagall a cup of unsweetened black tea. Of course, please look. McGonagall took out his magic wand and tapped it on the teacup. The teacup actually turned into a little mouse. This was the first time Fangzi saw magic. He curiously grabbed the little gray mouse. It's amazing. This is magic. I will never let Albert waste time learning such boring tricks. Do you expect him to be a magician in the future? Daisy took out the aura of a lawyer and pointed out sharply, I'll be honest. I am worried about Albert's future. The graduation certificate of the magic school should be no different from waste paper in the world of ordinary people. The premise is that if you really will issue a graduation certificate, every qualified graduate of Hogwarts can find a decent job in the magic world. You don't have to worry about this. Professor McGonagall explained. After learning about Dow magic, Daisy knew that she could not deny the existence of magic, but she still planned to make the last fight. Albert, I think Eton College is a better choice. It is your own efforts to win. If you want to go to finance, it's best not to go to Hogwarts. You won't be able to show your talent there. Herb looked at his wife and sighed helplessly. He knew that Daisy didn't want Albert to go to Hogwarts. Son, you can choose for yourself. We respect your choice. I'll be honest. McGonagall cleared his throat and explained. Hogwarts can teach underage wizards how to control and use magic. Moreover, once magic is out of control, it will cause some undesirable things. Well, it seems I have no choice. Albert raised his eyebrows involuntarily, but he had already made a choice. But Albert, Daisy wanted to say something else. However, it was interrupted by Nia. Madam, can I go to Hogwarts, too? Only 11-year-old children who receive an invitation from Hogwarts can go there to study. McGonagall declined gently. Nia, you are not 11. Albert touched his sister's head, looked at Professor McGonagall and asked, where should I go to buy things? And the ticket, where should I go? Train. Is this agree? Professor McGonagall couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and told Albert the approximate route to the Broken Cauldron Bar. You must be able to see it, although the muggles around you are invisible. Muggle refers to it. He's an ordinary person who doesn't understand magic. By the way, the owner of the bar is called Tom. As for how to get to Diagon Alley, you can ask Tom and he will be happy to guide you. As for platform 9 3/4, it is located in the partition wall between platform 9 and platform 10 of King's Cross Station. Just go through it. It's ridiculous to take the train to the wizarding school. Are all your magic carpets broken? Daisy sarcastically said. Daisy. Herb coughed lightly, and passed the record to Professor McGonagall to avoid missing any key information. Then, let's meet at Hogwarts on September 1st, Mr. Anderson. Professor McGonagall was about to leave. Professor, can you restore it to its original state? Albert pointed to the mouse that the teacup had turned into. Oh, of course. Professor McGonagall waved his magic wand, and the mouse returned to the teacup. After Albert sent the other party out, Professor McGonagall immediately appeared and disappeared. She disappeared. Herb looked at the place where Professor McGonagall was just standing. Dad, shall we go to London tomorrow? Albert asked. Oh, go shopping in London tomorrow. Herb said blankly. I want to go too. Nia said coquettishly, holding her father's hand. Wait for next time. Albert shook his head. I will get to know the place first, and I will take you with my mother next time, and I will come back to buy you gifts. I hate it. Albert really hates it. Nia left in a huff. Albert stretched out his hands helplessly towards Herb, turned around and went into the living room. There was still a big and a small child in the house that needed to be comforted. Chapter 4. Diagon Alley. Albert, are you sure we didn't go to the wrong place? Herb was checking the map in his hand, but couldn't find the bar that Professor McGonagall said. We need to find the bookstore first. The next door to the bookstore is a record store. Albert raised his finger to the big bookstore in front of him, and next door was a record store. This is it, but I, can't see where the bar is. Albert finished talking for him. He would never pay attention to the small bar next to the big bookstore if it weren't for special observation. People passing by in a hurry did not even look at it, of course, including his father Herb. I have seen the bar. Do you remember what Ms. McGonagall said? Can't find a muggle bar. Herb muttered. I hate the word muggle. Herb held his son's hand and was moved forward by Alberta. A few seconds later, he saw the legendary Broken Cauldron bar. That is a dirty, cramped bar. I hate it, it's so dirty. Me too, go in. Reduced the disgusting expression on his face, the father and son pushed the door one after another into the bar. Dirty, messy and dark. This is the two people's evaluation of this bar. Inside are some men and women who don't look normal. Most of them are elderly. They also have ridiculous top hats on their heads, which look very funny. If this group of people walk outside the street, they can definitely attract the attention of countless people, but now they are even more alien here. As dazzling as a ray of fire in the dark, Herb immediately calmed down, walked towards the counter, looked at the bald old man and asked tentatively, "Mr. Tom, little wizard from a Muggle family." Tom looked at Albert, then looked up and smiled at Herb. "You want to ask how to get to Diagon Alley?" "Yes, Mr. Tom. Professor McGonagall said you can take us to Diagon Alley." Albert also looked at the old man in front of him, barely squeezing a polite smile on his face. "Of course, please come with me." Tom walked out from behind the bar and beckoned the two to follow. The three came to the backyard of the bar, where there was only a brick wall, a trash can and a few empty wine barrels. "This trash can will stay here all the time. You need to count 3 pieces on top, and then 2 pieces in the horizontal direction. This is the brick." Tom pointed his finger at the place he had just tapped with his hand, and then pulled it out. The wand tapped on the brick 3 times, then turned to Albert and said, "When you have your own wand, you can open the entrance to Diagon Alley by yourself. Remember, use the wand 3 times. The brick knocked by old Tom began to tremble, and the brick wall moved strangely. A small hole appeared in the middle. The opening of the hole became bigger and bigger. It only took a few seconds to form a strip in front of the 3 people. The archway they passed, a cobblestone street stretches from underfoot to the front, flanked by shops, and there are many wizards and hawking stalls on the street. "Welcome to Diagon Alley." Tom smiled at the two. "Mr. Tom, how shall we go back later?" Herb asked. "After you finish shopping, you can open the door as I did just now." Tom answered Herb's question patiently, not forgetting to remind, "By the way, you'd better go to Gringotts to find the fairy first. Exchange for Canaan. Muggle coins cannot be used here. Going forward from here, the white building is the Gringotts Wizarding Bank." "Thank you for your suggestion, Mr. Tom. Happy to you." Tom smiled and waved to the two of them, then turned back to the bar. He liked the job. After Tom left, the entrance disappeared and turned back to the wall. "Let's go and change money." Herb took a deep breath. "It feels very different here." Albert looked at the surrounding shops, smiled and said to Herb, "It gives me the feeling that the times have gone back a century. To be honest, I doubt the correctness of letting you go to Hogwarts. Maybe Daisy's persistence is right." Herb sighed lightly. Although the magical world is magical, it always gives him a way to follow the illusion of the last era. "Dad, I don't necessarily have to live in the magical world." Albert couldn't help rolling his eyes and reminding, "I went to Hogwarts to study mainly to master this magical power." "Oh, you are right." Herb's mood improved a bit, and the two went through the crowd and headed to Gringotts. As Tom said, this is a white building, and there is a small figure standing beside the bronze gate, that is, a fairy. They are so special. Herb's facial expression was a bit stiff. This was the first time he had seen other humanoids other than humans. Albert didn't care. He looked at the look of the fairy, short, sharp beard, slender hands and toes, and a dark face, a creature with no sense of beauty at all. When they entered the door, Albert noticed the goblin bowing to them. There is a second door in the back, silver, with lettering on the 2 doors. After Herb came closer, he took a closer look and said aloud, "Please come in, stranger, but beware of what it is to be greedy. If you leave the game, just ask for it, and get something for nothing, you will definitely receive the severest punishment. I really don't understand, how do wizards need to rob the bank before they need to engrave a warning sign on the door?" After reading, Herb couldn't help but mutter. Albert wanted to laugh a little when he heard that, and quickly cleared his throat and asked, "How much are you going to change this?" Herb thought for a while, whispered, £1,000. "If it's not enough, you can change it again." £1,000. is equivalent to 1 month's salary for most people. Albert estimated that it was about 200 gallons. He nodded and said, I think it should be enough. After entering, the two fairies bowed the two and led them into a tall marble hall. Herb said that he needed to change some gallons. The fairy led them to the counter on the right again, and handed a piece of parchment to Herb. The park H meant was about the exchange rate between British pounds and Canadians and the concept of money in the magic world. 1 gallon is equal to 4.95 pounds. 1 gallon is equal to 17 chicks, and 1 chick is equal to 29 gnats. Eber handed the parchment to his son and asked, how many pounds does it cost 200 gallons? 990 pounds. Please help me exchange 200 gallons. Herb took out 990 pounds from his wallet, and let the goblin exchange it for gallons. Okay, wait a minute. The goblin took over the pounds and started counting. Excuse me, Mr. Fairy, no matter how many pounds can be exchanged for gallons here. Albert curiously asked the doubts of his previous life. That's true in theory, but we won't collect too much Muggle currency. The goblin rang the bell and called another goblin to give instructions. The goblin took a bag of gold coins and handed it to Herb. Then led them aside to verify the number of Canaan. I didn't expect it to be a gold coin. Herb fiddled with Garon at his fingertips and couldn't help but sigh. After counting Canaan and confirming that they were correct, the two took Canaan and left Gringotts. Walking on a sunny street, the gold coins in the two people's pockets collided with a pleasant jingle, as if urging them to spend the gold coins quickly. Chapter 5. The Magic Wand That Can Bring Luck. Are you going to buy a Hogwarts school uniform, dear? Just walking into the tailor's shop, a short and fat witch greeted Albert with a smile. Yes, ma'am, Albert said, thank you. What a polite young man. Come on, let me measure the specific parameters for you. Madame Morkan's finger moves, tape measures, pins, and scissors all fly over here and begin to automatically help Albert measure his body shape. This scene made Herb dumbfounded. Customizing clothes is a complicated process. It took a full half an hour, and Mrs. Morkan asked them to come back to pick up the packages after shopping. Madam, in addition to the clothes prescribed by the school, I also hope to order a black peaked cap and a normal black cloak. It will be according to my body shape, but no name tag is required. By the way, please pack it separately. Bert sorted out his messy clothes and said to Mrs. Morkan, a black peaked hat and an ordinary cloak. Mrs. Morkan looked at Herb suspiciously, and repeated Albert's words. Yes, Herb nodded. He knew it was a gift for Nia. Okay. Mrs. Morkan did not give extra thought to this strange request, nodded to indicate that she had understood. After paying a sum of gallon in advance, the two of them left the Madame Morkan's robe specialty store. They went to the Weasley Magic Supplies store not far from here, where they bought the brass balance on the list, brass telescope, glass vial. In fact, Albert only gave the list to Weasley, stating that he needed to buy the above items. A total of 13 gallons was spent. In addition, Albert bought an additional hourglass for 2 gallons. Under the enthusiastic introduction of Wise Ek, Albert found the Pataki crucible shop easily, and bought a pewter crucible in the shop, which cost 15 gallons. They went through the shop manager Patich again and found the pharmacy, where they replenish the medicinal materials used in the potions class. The drugstore is definitely not a pleasant place. When I approach you, I can get a disgusting smell, as if it was specially prepared to drive away customers. There are many weird things in the pharmacy. There are jars of herbs, hay roots, and various bright-colored powders on the cabinet. There are still bundles of feathers, bunches of fangs and fluffy claws hanging on the ceiling. My God, how can a wizard boil these things into potions and drink them? Herb didn't dare to think about it anymore, because he saw a can of slugs with a price of 1 gallon. Is really disgusting. This kid's father has a little doubt about life. Maybe letting my son go to Hogwarts is really not a wise move. In addition to potions, Albert also bought some tools that he would use when making potions. After paying, he took Herb with a complicated face and left the drugstore. Albert, or else, give up. After pulling Albert away from the drugstore, Herbert said with a serious face, let's go to Eton College. Albert's face twitched, and he shook his head. But the more I think about it, the more unreliable. Maybe Daisy is right. Herb looked at his son with a complicated expression. We still have some books short, and we need a magic wand and an owl. Albert looked at Herb and said, at least, before you understand the magic world, don't make any conclusions. Okay. Herb was a little depressed, but nodded in agreement. I bought the books on the list at Lihan Bookstore, and Albert bought additional books about the history of the wizarding world. Actually, Albert wanted to stay in the bookstore for a while, but considering the time issue, he gave up, and asked the bookstore manager to get a book list so that he could order books through Owl in the future. Then, at the Diagon Alley stationery store next to the Quidditch boutique, he bought a lot of parchment paper, quill pens, and ink. With the help of the boss, I found the Owl shop. This shop is located on the north side of Diagon Alley. It is easy to find. There are a lot of owls hanging outside. Owl must be bought, otherwise he will not be able to contact his family. B also helped buy a bag of owl food and owl nuts. Pushing the cart, Herb crossed out the purchased items one by one, leaving only the wand. The Ollivander wand shop is on the south side of Diagon Alley. They learned the location of the wand shop from the witch who sells owls. That is a small and broken shop. When Albert pushed the door into the shop, the jingle bell rang in the shop. It was very small and there was nothing but a bench. When Herb pushed the cart into the shop, he felt that it was full. He sat on the bench and ate the pumpkin pie he had just bought from the stall. There were some sweets on the cart. Gift prepared by Nia. Albert also had a pumpkin pie in his hand, and he was also hungry. Excuse me, is anyone there? Good afternoon. A soft voice sounded, and Ollivander came out from inside. Hello, sir, I want to buy. Albert put down the pumpkin pie and said, a magic wand. Oh, of course, a freshman at Hogwarts. Yes, sir. By the way, what is your name? Ollivander. Probably saw the doubt in Albert's eyes and explained, the wizard who bought the wand from me, the Ministry of Magic needs to keep it for record. Albert Anderson. Albert introduced himself. Okay, Mr. Anderson. Ollivander took out the tape measure from his pocket. Which arm do you use? I am used to using my right hand. Albert raised his arm. Ollivander began to measure Albert's size, starting from the shoulder to the fingertips, and then from the wrist to the elbow. The complicated measurement process made the father and son suspect that Ollivander was not selling wands but clothes. Every wand I make is unique, and wizards can always choose the most suitable one here, Ollivander said to himself while measuring, but Albert was already a little skeptical of life. Tape measure. E is actually automatically measuring the distance between his nostrils. Albert reached out his hand, pulled the ruler away, and walked to the counter. Ollivander has taken out a magic wand from the shelf and introduced. It is made of holly wood and phoenix feathers, 7 inches, very flexible. Albert just reached out to take it, and was taken away by Ollivander. Try this one, made of ash and unicorn hair. It is 8.5 inches long. It's an extraordinary combination and it has good elasticity. Albert took it, but it didn't work. It doesn't seem suitable, Ollivander said to himself. Try this one again. Albert tried one magic wand after another. Sometimes the wand showed great destructive power. The vases on the counter were blown up, which shocked Herb. I like picky guests. Ollivander took another pile of magic wands and said with a smile, it is made of red cedar and phoenix feathers. It is 9 inches long and has good elasticity. Albert took the wand and felt a slight warmth from his fingertips. With a light tap, the tip of the wand glowed with red sparks, which bloomed like fireworks in the shop. That's it. Ollivander happily put the wand into the box and said to Albert with a smile. It is said that a wand made of red cedar will bring luck to the user. Do you believe it? Albert asked rhetorically. I don't believe it. I think the magic wand's mad. By red cedar will be attracted to certain wizards, and these wizards already have the ability to turn dangers into danger when they encounter danger. So, it's not that red cedar will bring luck, but its owner made it famous for luck. Albert raised his eyebrows. You can say so. Ollivander nodded. A total of 10 gallons. Thank you for your patronage. Chapter 6. Try Magic. That night, Albert showed his family his new Hogwarts school uniform. Ordinary black work gown and a black peaked hat, nothing special. If you insist, It looks stupid, especially the peaked hat. If you wear it on your head and go out for a walk, you will definitely have a good rate of returning heads. At least Albert thinks that. Nia was very satisfied with her gift. She wore a cloak that was much larger than herself. And she wore the black peaked hat on her head. She posed in the living room. Herb took a photo of the two with a camera. Daisy sat on the sofa and read Albert's history of magic silently. Shish. E wanted to know more about where her son was going. Mom, look, it's a living chocolate frog. Nia opened the chocolate frog's packing box and couldn't help giggling when she saw the chocolate frog jumping away. Hebe had already gained experience, and quickly reached out and grabbed the chocolate frog that fell on the table and handed it to Nia. Then, Herb opened another box, which also contained a chocolate frog. He quickly grabbed the chocolate frog and handed it to Daisy, who was reading the book carefully. Is this food really edible? Daisy raised her eyebrows and looked suspiciously at the chocolate frog that looked like a living creature in front of her, doubting whether it was safe to eat. Mom, the chocolate frog is edible, it tastes very good. Nia had bitten off the chocolate frog's head. She was very happy to eat. And some melted chocolate was still on her face. Okay, wipe your face clean, like a little tabby cat. Albert handed his handkerchief to Nia, turned his head to look at Tom, who was facing the owl. Picked it up, and put it on the sofa. Cao Chen said, Tom, don't bully it. Albert took out the owl nuts from the package, poured some on the plate in the cage, and muttered, what is the name? Quote, Jerry. Albert thought about it and wanted to give this snow owl this name. Tom and Jerry. Although there is no cat and mouse anime in this world, Albert thinks the name is quite happy. Shui Xiao seemed to perceive the host's malice and did not respond to Jerry. Albert, your name is so terrible. Nia reached out and picked up the owl, rubbed her face and said, it should be called Shira. That's a good name. Why isn't it called Shirabi? Albert thought wickedly. Albert, the person in the picture suddenly disappeared. Herb was surprised to find that the person in the chocolate frog painting had disappeared. Photo. Albert looked at his father, holding a picture of a chocolate frog in his hand. Maybe the picture of the wizard would move. The chocolate frog can move. Why can't the character in the photo move? That's right. Herb accepted this explanation. He turned the picture over and read the text on the back. Albus Dumbledore, the current principal of Hogwarts. And is recognized as the greatest wizard of our time. Oh, that's the old man who sent the letter to Albert. Daisy took the chocolate frog picture from her husband, Juan Ting, to see who sent the invitation letter to her son. It's a pity, the picture is empty. Daisy turned over the chocolate frog picture and continued to read the remaining parts. Dumbledore's well-known WN contributions include defeating the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945, discovering 12 uses for dragon blood, and partnering Nico LeMay as very effective in alchemy. Professor Dumbledore loves chamber music and 10-pin bowling. Dragon blood. Daisy's eyes widened, and she said in disbelief, there are still dragons in this world. And Nico LeMay, I remember he was famous alchemist in the 14th century. Albert added, the legendary Philosopher's Stone was created. It is said that the Philosopher's Stone can be turned into gold, and it can make people immortal. If he is still alive, it means that the Philosopher's Stone as Nico LeMay will live forever. Okay, Daisy, be happy. Herb reached out his arm around his wife, softly comforted, the situation is not as bad as you think. Especially when we don't know the magic world, it's better not to take it lightly. Make a judgment, and you should believe our son, he is a genius, and he can show his talents wherever he goes. By the way, Albert, can you use magic? Nia rushed towards Albert, grabbed his hand, and shook it gently like a baby, looking at Albert expectantly with her small face. I want to see you become magic. Let me study it first. I don't know how to use it now. Albert reached out and messed up Nia's hair. I hate it. Nia covered her head and ran to Daisy's side, sharing pumpkin pie with her. Albert began to read Miranda Gossick's standard spells, elementary, then took out his wand from the box, and prepared for his first attempt at casting. Don't, Albert, don't try here. Herb's face twitched, thinking of what happened in the wand shop. You should have a little confidence in your son. Albert raised his wand and tapped it lightly, chanting softly, "Fluorescence flashes." The tip of the wand flashed suddenly, and then went out again. "Just now, the tip of that cane flashed, right?" Daisy said uncertainly. "Yes, it flashed a bit, really worthy of my son." Herb discovered that Albert could use magic immediately. With undisguised pride on his face. "Albert, what was that just now?" Nia asked excitedly. It's a glowing spell. It should be a better spell, I'm trying it." Albert checked his panel secretly, and he found that there were more glowing spells in the skill list. The spell is still at level 0, but it has gained 7 points of experience. Only reach level 1, UU reading www.uakanshu.com is truly mastered. Only 100 points of experience are needed to go from level 0 to level 1, but Albert does not intend to use the stored precious experience to upgrade the glowing charm to level 1. Even if there are only 100 points of experience, it is quite precious. "I'll try again." Albert cleared his throat and chanted the spell again, the tip of the wand glowing pale again. Albert tried a total of 5 times before he could barely master the spell. He only needs to concentrate a little bit and the light on the wand will not disappear easily. Seeing this scene, the other 3 couldn't help applauding. Although it was just a simple glowing spell, it was quite remarkable in the eyes of the Anderson family. Albert, let me try it, I want to try it too." Nia threw on her brother excitedly. "No." Albert quickly put away his wand. "At least, you can't play here, you know. The last time I tried a wand, I almost blew up the counter of that wand shop." "Stingy." "This is not a stingy question. The wand itself is dangerous. I don't understand anything. What should I do if I am in danger?" Albert immediately raised his face and offered his assassin. "I won't teach you how to use magic." "Albert is right," Herb hurriedly said. "You should wait until he is familiar with magic before teaching you." "Okay." Nia pouted dissatisfiedly, and still compromised, but she looked a little disappointed. She was envious of Albert's ability to use magic. "Your grandfather, I plan to come over these 2 days. However, I think we'd better visit them together, lest we have to run and lie down again." Herb left some candy and gifts from the magic world. He knew his father he won't eat them, but he must be happy to see them. Chapter 7. Magic Night. Late at night, at number 19, Tybee Avenue. The light on the second floor window is still on. Albert was quick to read the contents of the books, and he also easily upgraded his fast memory to level 2. His memory has become much stronger. And ordinary people don't have this ability, at least not as strong as Albert in memory. Just now, Albert discovered that he had another unfamiliar skill, Wizard Blood, level 0. Normal experience cannot upgrade this skill, only through skill points. This is the first time I have seen this situation. Albert hesitated, but still raised the Wizard Bloodline to level 1. After upgrading his skills, Albert found that his efficiency in learning magic has become higher. In other words, his magic power has become stronger, and his mastery of the Shining Curse has become faster. After only a dozen minutes of practice, he brushed the skill to 1 level. Means that Albert has initially mastered the spell, and he can easily use it even without special attention. "Do you want to invest all your skill points?" Albert hesitated. Skill points are difficult to obtain. He needs to reserve some for himself. However, after hesitating again and again, when he nodded the remaining 2 skills, he found that he could only get 1 level up. What a pit. After Albert raised the Wizard Bloodline to level 2, he didn't feel any other changes. Is it a passive skill? Albert was a little depressed, but he didn't regret it. Walked out of the room, and began to try the lock-opening spell. With a wand in one hand, he opened the standard spell, Elementary, in the other, and followed the gestures taught in the book and swiped it twice. Which was a bit like a reverse S shape, which felt very awkward. After a few more attempts, Albert locked the door with his backhand and gave his doorknob a hole in the door. Albert stretched out his hand and twisted it a few times, but the lock did not open. Failed. Although the failure is expected, there is still good news. There is another unlocking spell on the panel. But this time there is no experience. "Albert, what are you doing?" The girl's voice sounded from behind, and Nya in her pajamas appeared at the end of the corridor. Albert turned his head and looked at his sister. He knew the other's mood now, as if he had caught a thief who was stealing a snack. "Why don't you go to bed?" Albert asked. "Can't sleep," Nia complained. "It's really cunning. You are actually practicing magic secretly." Albert is a bit embarrassed, but the fact is that it's like this, it's like being caught stealing, stealing desserts, a little modest. "I want to play too," Nia said, staring at Albert's wand. "But this is not a toy." Albert shook his head. He wouldn't let his sister use this wand. Little children know the least about restraint, and if they do things according to their own preferences, no one knows what big trouble she will cause. Of course, the premise is that Nia is also a wizard. After all, Albert herself is a wizard, and there is a high chance that Nya is a wizard. So he will not let Nya try to use the wand easily, at least not now. "It's so cunning, aren't you just playing with it?" Nia complained, like a child with a toy stolen. "Don't go back to sleep." Albert changed the subject. "No, I can't sleep." "Then I will tell you a story." Albert took out the key, reopened the door and walked in. "Albert is too cunning," Nya murmured, but she still picked Tom and walked into Albert's room. Tom was sniffing around as soon as he entered the room. He seemed to be looking for owls. He had great opinions about the bird cage by the window. "Okay, Tom, Snow is out looking for food." Albert picked up the short-hair cat, touched its belly, and then did not forget to put the wand in the drawer, lock it, and put the key in his pocket. Like an anti-thief, Albert is too aware of his sister's personality. "Hate, is it necessary to guard against thieves like this?" Nia pouted dissatisfiedly. "I don't know you yet." Albert rolled his eyes at Nia. "If you get the wand, wouldn't you blow up our house?" "I won't," Nia said stubbornly. "Who knows you can't. Don't forget, how did the scratch on your arm come from?" Albert didn't want to try. "Don't promise me, I don't want you to lose one of them one day." The arm, even worse, lost his life. "No way." Nia felt a little frustrated. At the beginning, it was indeed a similar situation. It was not long after Tom arrived at their house and was scratched because of his rude treatment of Tom. She still remembered that Albert scolded her angrily. That was the first time Nia saw Albert angry. "Don't forget the lesson?" Albert asked rhetorically. "Do you still want to listen to the story?" "Okay." Nia leaned on the cushion, touched Tom's hair, and listened quietly to Albert's fairy tale. He is already very proficient. It used to be to practice oral English and improve his English by the way. After all, the Colonel is not an orthodox Englishman. Although he has been fascinated after crossing, he still has a little gap in this respect. It is worth mentioning that he also mastered a foreign language incidentally, and French was also improved by his experience to a level. Albert would be regarded as a genius, not without any reason. "Albert, do you think I can use magic in the future?" Nia asked suddenly. "It should be okay. I can use magic, and Nia should be okay," Albert comforted. "That's because you are a genius and learn everything quickly. This has nothing to do with being a genius." Albert was speechless for a while. "We are brothers and sisters, I can, and you should be able to." "But grandfather can't. He said that his family can do it, but he can't be alone," Nia murmured. "Furthermore, Dad can't." "Innocent lay gun. Even if you can't use magic, you can do other things." Albert comforted. "It's too cunning. You can already use magic, so you can comfort others with such words." "Tom, hit him." Nya grabbed Tom's paw and put it on Albert's face. As the night got deeper, Nia fell asleep unconsciously. The door was pushed open. Daisy and Herb in pajamas walked into the room, looking helplessly at their sleeping daughter. Finally fell asleep, Herb picked up Nia and returned to her room. "Good night, Albert. Rest early, don't stay up late, you can read the book tomorrow." Daisy kissed Albert's face and whispered softly, "Your dad and I will not oppose your decision." "Good night." Albert covered a yawn, reached out and pushed Tom. This guy just rolled over lazily, as if he didn't intend to move. "Forget it. Good night, Tom." Albert pushed the cat aside, reached out to fiddle with the pillow, and found a comfortable position to lie down and ready to rest. He was also very tired. However, after all, magic is really a magical thing. Chapter 8. Grandfather. 2 days later, the Anderson family drove to Charles Street. Albert's grandfather and grandmother lived at 21 Charles Street. The Andersons take time to visit the two elderly people every year. During the summer vacation, Albert will always stay here for a few days. Dad, I came to see you. Albert, come here and let me see. Luke completely ignored his son, stepped forward and stared at his grandson. Eber said, "It's great that you have received a letter from Hogwarts. If there is something you want to buy, you can tell me." Dad, I have taken Albert to buy things in Diagon Alley in London. Herb looked at his father helplessly, cleared his throat and said, "I'm still bringing you a gift." Quote, "I'm not a kid, what kind of gift do I want?" Luke glanced up at his son, took Albert's little hand and said, "Go to the house and tell me what magic you have learned." Luke has been excited for several days, like a child. Sansa said to the herbs. "He never told me about it before. I only knew it a few days ago. I haven't seen Nee for a long time. Ya, have you missed me anymore? My brother won't let me touch his wand, he always guards me like a thief." Nia immediately reported to her grandmother. "Eber, watch Tom, don't let him run around." Daisy picked up the package in the car and asked her husband to put the cat in the cat cage, lest the guy ran off. I from the cat cage as soon as he got out of the cage. Can Albert really become magic? Sansa thought this was very interesting, but she didn't expect her grandson to be a legendary wizard. Yes, he can make the wand shine. And practice secretly in the room every night. Nya held her grandmother's hand and said that Albert's was not. He also said that if I took the wand, I would definitely the home was blown up. Mom, you don't know. That magic wand is really dangerous, let me tell you. Herb took the cat cage and followed them behind, still talking about what he had seen in Diagon Alley. Albert thinks it is dangerous to try magic indiscriminately. Daisy added that she had read the history of magic and knew part of what happened in the magic world, and she still had some understanding of the magic world. Well, Daisy, things are not as bad as you think. No, Mom, in fact, even in the wizarding world, children would not be allowed to easily take a wand. Daisy was completely on Albert's side, and their son was very reliable. How do you know? Herb asked curiously. If you read all those books, you will know. Daisy looked at her husband reproachfully. Can you take care of Albert? He is our precious son. Don't worry, Albert didn't need us to worry since he was a child. Herb knows his son's character very well, and Albert has always made people worry. Even so, you should have a snack. Daisy took the parcel into the door, and took the door to the room. After being imprisoned all the way, Tom was released from the cat's cage and started running around. Sansa and Daisy went to the kitchen to prepare desserts and black tea, and Luke was listening to his son and grandson talking about Diagon Alley. The missing parts will complement each other. Luke, of course, knew that the portrait of a wizard was moving, and he also knew Dumbledore. He put the chocolate frog that Herb brought into a large glass bottle and placed it in the living room as a decoration. I even wrote to Dumbledore at the time, asking why I didn't receive the invitation letter. After so many years, Luke was relieved, because I didn't have any ability to cast spells, the so-called dumb cannon. I was 11. He was sent away by his family in 1 year and handed over to an ordinary distant relative to raise him. How can they do this? Herb was puzzled and angry. He felt that his father's family had done too much. The dumb cannon is a shame to a wizard's family. Luke whispered, they will hide this secret as much as possible, and even pretend that there is no such person. Not sad, not sad. Nia comforted. After so many years, I have put these things aside, and I have completely disconnected from the family over there. Luke picked up Nia and put it on his lap, and said with a smile, however. Albert became a wizard a bit strangely. To my surprise, when Herb didn't receive the invitation letter, I gave up completely. In the small talk, Albert showed them new magic, such as the glowing spell, the repairing spell and the cleaning spell, and the unlocking spell. These are the 4 magics he currently masters, thanks to the promotion to level 2. Blood of the Wizard, Alt. Huff. I am not proficient in mastering it. It is quite surprising to see the cracked teacup slowly repairing and the tea poured on the table being dried without warning. I want to. Nia looked at her grandfather coquettishly and whispered, I want to learn magic too, Albert is too cunning. Luke looked at his grandson and asked him for his opinion. He knew that Albert had his own opinion, and He would not decide on some things at will. You can only do what I tell you. Albert looked at his sister, and he was actually very curious about whether Nia had magic talent. I will, I promise. Nia nodded like a chicken pecking rice. You promised so quickly. Forget it, you are not listening to me at all. Albert stared at his sister and said seriously. Why? I'm listening carefully. Nia quickly retorted. Say it to me first. The fluorescence flickers. Fluorescence blinks. Nia hurriedly followed. She knew it was a spell. Read it a few more times slowly. Don't read it wrong, otherwise no one knows what will happen. Albert said. I will lend you my wand later. Don't jab it with it, don't use it at people. Don't chant the curse, even if you don't use magic, you can't lose your temper. I see, Nia said a little impatiently. What I just said, Albert asked suddenly. Don't jab with your magic wand, don't. Nia forgot to say. She pursed her lips and complained. I am not you, how can I remember so many things? Quote, if you can't remember, I can't give you the magic wand. Albert said seriously. But, well, you were talking about it once. Nia compromised. Watching Albert eat NYA to death. The Andersons all laughed. Kids, they always like to be naughty. Nia's situation is similar. However, Albert has a way to manage her mischief. After Nia remembered his words, Albert gave her his wand. Nia took the wand excitedly, and after being glared by Albert, she calmed down, chanting the spell obediently and tried to use the glowing spell, but the spell did not succeed. Take a deep breath, concentrate, and try again. Albert stretched out his hand on Nia's shoulder and said softly, Luminous spell is one of the simplest spells. If it cannot be used, it probably means that Nia may not have the talent to become a wizard. Fluorescence flickers. Nia tried several more times, but none of them succeeded. You are anxious. Don't worry, the more anxious, the easier it is to fail. Albert stroked his sister's hair and turned his head to look at his grandfather. Luke shook his head. Albert actually knew what it meant. Am I not talented to be a wizard? Nia cried a face, looking very sad. I don't know either. Albert comforted. Perhaps, it's just because you are young and caring. Hate. Albert always likes to lie. I must not have the talent to be a wizard. Nia dropped her wand and ran away. Albert picked up his wand with a helpless look, looked at the direction Nya ran away, and prepared to catch up. Children are trouble. I'm going to find Nia. Uke stood up and walked in the direction of his granddaughter. He understood Nia's current mood. Chapter 9. No disaster. Didn't know how Luke comforted Nia and restored the tempered granddaughter. In the next few days, Herb and Daisy both went back to work, while Albert and Nia continued to stay on Charles Street for the summer vacation. Albert would share the history of magic and other books with the two old men, and perform the magic in front of them. He also spent a fortune on Garon, and asked Weasley to order a set of wizard chess. Study how to play chess. At first, Nia was taken aback by wizard chess, but she soon liked this game. Of course, the result is that no one plays chess with Albert, because his chess skills have clearly surpassed everyone. Wizard chess is actually the same as chess, but its pieces are all living. You usually need a password to command the pieces, which is more like commanding an army. If you reach for it, the chess piece will pierce your hand with a weapon. Of course, ordinary people can also use it, but they cannot be dispatched well. The chess pieces seem to be self-conscious, and they always whine and complain, saying, will you play chess? Don't send me go there, send a pawn. And sacrifice it doesn't matter. Albert's study progressed very quickly. During this period, he also completed the Luke's Regret task and gained 1,500 points of experience. His experience has accumulated to 30,000 again. Although the experience pool seems to be large, it is actually useless. The higher the skill level, the more difficult it is to improve the skill. Later, it can only consume experience pool or skill points to upgrade. Albert, are you sure this leaf will float? Nia kept looking at the leaf, but it never responded. I think the gesture is wrong. Albert was a little depressed. When casting a spell, his wrist movement is also very important. Sometimes a wrong movement or non-standard spelling may cause the magic to fail. This is easy for beginners. Mistakes committed. In the absence of no one to teach, he can only explore it slowly, or use the experience in the experience pool to upgrade the skill to level 1 and directly master it. Albert would choose the former, and would consider the latter unless he really couldn't master it. He didn't care much about a floating spell, and mastering this spell was not too difficult to learn. It turns out that magic is really not that easy to learn. Nia admired Albert's patience, at least she didn't have so much patience to use it. Of course, it's like learning mathematics. It needs to be done step by step. Albert pushed his sister on a swing, comforting him casually, "Don't give up until the end." "I hate it. I'm tired of such comforting words." Nia curled her lips, but she was still very happy. Actually, Nia guessed that she might not really have the talent to be a wizard. After talking to her grandfather last time, she didn't care about it that much anymore. When there were no people in the park, Albert tried another floating spell. This time, he succeeded. After chanting Eugadim Leviosa, the leaves successfully floated in the air. At this time, Albert noticed that someone was looking here. So he put away his wand, followed his feelings, and stared at the guy who was looking at him. The other party was a teenager slightly older than him. "Something." Albert raised his eyebrows, looked at the boy and asked. Albert is not at all afraid of the opponent's choice. His karate is upgraded to level 2, even without using a wand, he can beat ordinary people to the ground. Karate was learned when Albert was 8 years old. It is aimed at those bear kids who like to make trouble, especially after he cried 3 children at school last time, everyone in the S. Schule knew that Albert Anderson could do karate, and it was very powerful. For this reason, Daisy was called by the teacher to the school for training, but she still stood firm on Albert's side and called her husband over. The husband and wife gave full play to the talents of lawyers, leaving everyone speechless. "No way, all 3 children are older than Albert. You can't beat them but are embarrassed to cry and find a teacher." In the end, the matter was over. At that time, Albert officially accepted the family. "You are a freshman at Hogwarts, right? Don't try magic in this kind of place. You will be discovered. Ordinary people are afraid of the power of magic." The boy looked at the leaves floating in the sky with surprise. "I didn't expect to see a freshman who was just about to enroll." And the other party managed to make the leaves float. "Thank you, I will pay attention." Albert felt that the other party was not malicious, and said thank you to the person, and took his sister to leave. "I'm Gabriel Truman, a student at Hufflepuff College, and I live nearby." Gabriel Truman shook hands with Albert kindly. "You are a freshman, right? Hope you can come to Hufflepuff College." "Hufflepuff?" Albert asked questioningly. "Oh, by the way, you still don't understand the 4 colleges and the branching ceremony." Just as Truman was about to say something, he saw an owl fly towards this side and threw a letter at his feet. "How come there are owls now?" Truman picked up the letter questioningly. "You reading www.uaconchu.com" opened in front of Albert. His expression froze, and his face suddenly became ugly. Nia also noticed the change in atmosphere, and quickly hid behind Albert. "What's wrong?" Albert also felt something was wrong, and asked tentatively. "I was fired. Why was this, why?" Truman's face was full of doubts and anger, and he seemed to be going crazy at any time. He didn't understand why the Ministry of Magic would send a letter saying that he been cast for using the levitation charm in front of Muggles. Apart from. "That's right, it's you, it must be you." Truman saw Albert and suddenly figured out what was going on. He rushed madly at the new student in front of him, but suddenly felt that the world was spinning. He was even more than himself. The little child was brought down. The next moment, Truman felt a pain in his wrist and couldn't help screaming in pain. "Calm down, things are not as bad as you thought." Albert had guessed the reason from Truman's words, and the hapless guy was expelled from the school. "I didn't use the levitating charm at all." Truman roared very angrily. "I didn't even wear a wand." "I know, I used that spell." Albert reminded him calmly. "Maybe we should write to the school and explain the situation. If necessary, I will testify to you." "Don't worry, they will not easily if you fire you. We'd better write a letter now, one by one, and explain the situation to the principal." "Do you have an owl?" "No." Truman was a little depressed. He found that he was not calm. "Brother, it's Sheila." Nia pointed to the owl flying here. It seems that Shira knows we need it. The owl is really a magical creature. Albert couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 10. My home is professional. Gabriel Truman has nothing to do. He accepted Albert's proposal, and his expulsion from Hogwarts was a result that he could not accept anyway. After writing the letter, Truman looked at the flying owl, looked at Albert and asked, "Is this really all right?" I think the school is also shocked. I don't think they will expel a student at will. At least they will figure out what's going on. Albert comforted. The freckled teenager calmed down. It should be said that he was infected by Albert's calmness. "Can you lend me a look at that letter?" Albert asked. "Oh, here, what a disaster." Truman smiled bitterly. "I was warned by the Ministry of Magic once for using magic in front of my family during the summer vacation of the first grade." He handed the letter to Albert and explained, "Students at Hogwarts can't use magic outside the school." But why was Albert not warned after using magic? Nia was puzzled. Geez, probably because he hasn't gone to school yet. Truman was actually not quite clear. It should be some loophole. Albert began to read the content on the parchment. "Dear Mr. Truman, we have received information that you were in a Muggle residential area at 10:40 noon and applied a floating spell in front of a Muggle." Seeing this, Albert's emotions were a bit complicated. He knew who the Muggles were referring to. He took a deep breath and sorted out the complicated emotions before continuing to watch. This behavior seriously violated the Reasonable Restraint of Underage Wizards Act, so you have been expelled from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The Ministry of Magic will soon send a representative to your residence and destroy your wand. As you have been formally warned. For violating Article 13 of the International Federation of Magicians Confidentiality Act, we regret to inform you that you must go to the Ministry of Magic for trial at 10 a.m. on August 17th. I hope you take care. Your faithful Mafalda Hopkirk. Ministry of Magic prohibits abuse of the Ministry of Magic. I suggest that after the matter is resolved, apply for spiritual compensation from the Ministry of Magic. Albert's family members are all lawyers, so he has learned a little bit about how to exploit legal loopholes. Truman was a bit dazed. Without even figuring out what was going on, our party actually said that he should apply for spiritual compensation from the Ministry of Magic. I dare say that the Ministry of Magic must have a way to monitor this area, but they don't know who used the magic. Albert continued, "I only came here for the summer vacation with my sister a few days ago, because you happened to hit us, so the Ministry of Magic thought that you used the levitation charm and was about to fire you. In fact, this was a serious mistake by them, and this letter shocked you, right? I almost got out of control just now, and this definitely has to pay for mental damage." "Yes, it is totally reasonable to ask for a mental damage fee." Nia agreed. "My family members are all lawyers, so I know these things better than you." Albert continued to instigate, "Someone will definitely come over later. At least someone will write a letter. Anyway, clear your matter first. Then complain about the Ministry of Magic's mistakes and ask them to compensate you for the cost of being frightened. And ask them for 100 gallons. Will it be too much?" Truman was taken aback when Albert's lion spoke. "That's easy to explain," Albert said without hesitation. "At least 50 gallons is not too much. If it is lower than this number, don't, lest they think children are fooled. Adults are like this, they think children are easy to pass." Quote, "If the Ministry of Magic does not give the money, I can write you a letter and ask the Daily Prophet to poke the matter out anonymously. I believe they will be willing to pay you 50 gallons. However, you will get the money at that time. I need to divide half of it for the cost of writing for you." Albert's words made Truman feel that this kid is so amazing. Hogwarts, the principal's room. Dumbledore just received a notification from the Ministry of Magic that Gabriel Truman was expelled from the ministry for using the levitation charm in front of Muggles. This is not good news. Truman has a record. During the first-year summer vacation, he was warned by the Ministry of Magic for using magic in front of his family. Just as Dumbledore was about to go to the Ministry of Magic to confirm the situation, a letter from the owl surprised him. The letter described that Truman had nothing to do with this incident. He just ran into a freshman in the park who was about to enter the school who was practicing the floating spell. And that Muggle was referring to the other's sister. This is not like a lie, because there is another letter in the letter, and his owner is Albert Anderson. Albert expressed in the letter that he regretted the unwarranted disaster he brought to Truman, and said that he could testify for him if necessary. Dumbledore found this name in his memory. He was indeed a freshman in the 1st grade, from a Muggle family. Dumbledore couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He thought that this was probably the case. Expulsion of a student is definitely not something that the principal likes to see him. Dumbledore immediately went to the Ministry of Magic, and talked about the letter and the matter with the person who prohibited the abuse of the Department of Magic. The matter was not serious enough to require trial. If it was only an accident, the Ministry of Magic would probably be due to it become a laughing stock. After all, both Dumbledore and the Ministry of Magic knew the loopholes in Trace Silk. The facts are similar to what Albert had guessed. The Ministry of Magic sent someone and he also saw Dumbledore. The old man smiled and looked at the two children talking in the park. It seems that this should be a misunderstanding. Dumbledore smiled and said to the Ministry staff nearby, "I think you should be Principal Dumbledore." Albert looked up Dumbledore, reached out and shook hands with the other party, and said, "You are the same as the picture of a chocolate frog." Mr. Albert. Dumbledore looked at Albert and said with a smile, "We received your letter, child, can you give me the wand?" "Oh, of course, no problem." Albert knew what Dumbledore wanted to do, so he gave him the wand anyway. After the principal really used it, he detected the magic used in the last few days. He looked at Albert with a bit of surprise, and was surprised that the child actually mastered 5 magics in just a few days. "Truman just corrected my gesture of using the floating spell. I just mastered this spell," Albert explained. "Where's your wand?" The wizard from the Ministry of Magic looked at Truman. "I didn't bring it. Keep it at home. If you need to check, you can come back with me to get it." Truman was very confident, and he was not afraid of checking anyway. "This seems to be a misunderstanding, Nutley," Dumbledore said with a smile. "Yes, I think so." Nutley nodded. "I think I need to write a new report." Chapter 11. Mess up. "Sir." Truman took a deep breath and said loudly, "You left like this. What's the matter?" Nutley looked at Truman suspiciously. "In other words, am I okay?" Truman was dissatisfied with the Ministry's attitude. "Yes, it was a complete mistake." Nutley's tone was very formulaic. Truman glanced at Albert next to him and said coldly, "I need an apology. You know how much this letter has affected me. Do you know, when I found out that I was expelled inexplicably, how angry you are? Now you say it's okay, just like sending me. Do you think a child is good for bullying, sir?" Truman's tone became stronger, and the Ministry of Magic actually patted his ***** and planned to leave, which really made him very angry. Not long ago, Albert gave him the early work, and his slightly trembling tone gradually became very tough. "I need an apology from the Ministry of Magic. This incident is entirely caused by your mistakes, and it has nothing to do with me. Relationship, and the Ministry of Magic must compensate for my mental damage." "What? I didn't hear clearly." Nutley's expression froze, and even the expression on Dumbledore's face became wonderful. "Sorry. There is also the mental loss, Mr. Fay." Truman clenched his fists. 100 gallons. "Sorry kid, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble, but the mental damage fee. Never precedent." Nutley raised his brows involuntarily. "I don't accept your apology, you have no sincerity." Truman said angrily, "You think I'm just a child, so you can bully." Nutley and Dumbledore looked at each other. "I think it's a very good cooperation, gentlemen. I was there. When Truman leapt towards me after reading the letter, I even suspected that he was crazy. It took me a long time to calm him down and suggested that he give dang Principal Bullet wrote a letter." Albert looked at the two people in front of him calmly, without any fear. To be honest, he didn't like the Ministry of Magic, at least when reading novels. And even more so after seeing how the Ministry handled it. For such a big mistake, at least a sincere apology must be given to you. "Bastard, what's the matter if you pat your ***** and leave? When it comes to dressing, it is just a group of guys who use their power, so it's no wonder that Voldemort will be like a ghost. Also, I also think your apology is insincere." Albert squinted and said with a smile, "I haven't seen an adult like you. One of my former teachers was like that guy." Nutley's face went black all at once. Of course, you can just treat us as children. Albert laughed suddenly and patted Truman on the shoulder. Some people, just like this, don't care too much about going back. I will contact you through an owl, maybe we can talk about learning issues. Natalie left, leaving with a black face. He didn't know what he would face. Then goodbye the principal. Albert nodded slightly to Dumbledore. Thank you very much for helping Truman solve this trouble. If he was kicked out because of me, I would feel guilty for it. Goodbye Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Truman. Principal Dumbledore also left. Those guys are so annoying. Truman clenched his fists and said, "What kind of attitude is that? So annoying, I really want to punch him hard." Well, do you want to write to the Daily Prophet? Albert smiled and looked at Truman after Dumbledore left. Just now, he triggered a mission called Truman's Dissatisfaction. Yes, it must be exposed. Remember to get half of the reward. Albert is not afraid to make trouble at all. The reward for this task is very rich, with 3,000 experience points, and an extra 25 gallons. Okay, you right. By the way, are your family really lawyers? Truman couldn't help asking. Of course, they are all lawyers. So I am actually quite good at this aspect. What's more, we are right. The society sympathizes with the weak. People must also like to see the Ministry of Magic scandal in the Daily Prophet and discuss it with reporters. Now, let our names and photos not appear in the newspaper, and keep the letter from the Ministry of Magic. Albert knows that there is a guy who is very suitable for this. Ellipsis ellipsis. UK, London, headquarters of the Daily Prophet. Rita Skeeter is thinking about today's special issue. Recently, there is no major news to write, which makes her a little bit troubled. People like to read big news. Whether it is true or the content is exaggerated, as long as the newspaper can attract the attention of readers, in the eyes of Rita Skeeter, it is a successful newspaper. She is asking her assistant, trying to find some news that can trigger the topic. A few letters were placed at Rita Skeeter's desk soon after. She opened the envelope. There were some scolding her and some telling her the gossip. However, a letter successfully attracted Rita Skeeter's attention. After reading the letter, Rita Skeeter stopped, knowing that this is the news she wants, because there is also a photo attached to it. A few days later, the Ministry of Magic's prohibition against abuse of the Ministry of Magic became famous. In the Daily Prophet, Rita Skeeter described it as a department that always made an oolong, and refused to apologize for his mistakes and dealt with the problem extremely badly. Natalie was also pointed out alone, and this hapless guy became the object of criticism from countless people. Rita Skeeter wrote at the end of the article that the victim of doubted whether the Ministry of Magic was still worthy of trust. He revealed the matter to the Daily Prophet and asked for 50 gallons. As a mental compensation that the Ministry of Magic is not willing to pay. This was more than what the Ministry of Magic should have paid for, and they owed the child a sincere apology. Quote, after seeing this newspaper, Nutley suddenly felt that the original decision was really bad. He remembered what the boy said. Do you think a child is easy to bully, sir? Quote, however, the other party proved with facts that he is not easy to bully. Not long after the newspaper came out, it immediately caused a sensation. Natalie was forced to temporarily leave his job without pay, because it was forbidden to abuse the Department of Magic, and many people sent letters there. Rita Skeeter used her pen to tell everyone what is the lethality of words. After receiving the dictation and description of the two, the reporter skillfully used these words to fabricate what she expected. By the way, make a mess of the Ministry of Magic. She didn't worry about the unreliable content, because it included the content of the letter from the Ministry of Magic prohibiting the abuse of the Ministry of Magic. Truman was in a very happy mood. He received 25 gallons as spiritual compensation, which was a wealth that he could not even imagine. Moreover, the female reporter did not reveal the names of him and Albert. It was just as Albert had guessed. The Daily Prophet took this incident as the headline, slammed the Ministry of Magic. And by the way, the guy is unlucky. Albert was in a good mood. His mission was completed and he got the friendship of Truman. They often contacted him through owls during summer vacation, and the other party could give him some help in magic. As for the garon that was distributed, Albert used to order the Daily Prophet. Chapter 12. Before school starts. The summer vacation always flies very fast. And it comes to the end of August in the blink of an eye, not far from the start of Hogwarts. Said that he did not expect to go to Hogwarts to go to school is false. Although Albert prefers to stay at home and continue fishing for a while. However, time waits for no one. In terms of magic, it is never a good idea to unilaterally fumble, just like a blind man is holding a cane to explore the way. No one knows what's ahead. Albert still knows a little about magic, even if he has read all the books. Still maintains a pen-pal relationship with Truman, 1 letter for 3 days. The grades of this Hufflepuff student can only be regarded as mediocre. The knowledge in his head was emptied by Albert within a few days. Truman thought that Albert might be assigned to Ravenclaw, because he showed great interest in the knowledge of magic, and he also regretted that. Will be assigned to that college, Albert doesn't care. Just don't go in Slytherin. After all, Muggle wizards are not welcome there. However, as an Albert Muggle wizard, he probably wouldn't be able to enter Slytherin. Thank you, take a good rest. Albert touched the owl's head and put some food in the bird cage. Albert was still satisfied with this owl, at least after he repeatedly asked. Shira never brought back any prey. He believed that Daisy would not like to find dead mice while cleaning the room. Shwayla gave a weary cry, went into the bird cage to eat, ready to take a rest, completely indifferent to Tom's fangs next to her. Don't make trouble with Tom. Albert picked up the shish, their cat and went downstairs for breakfast. Today, Herb is free at home. He recently liked the Daily Prophet and showed great interest in this dynamic newspaper. Daisy will also get together to read the Daily Prophet, hoping to learn more about the magic world. In the morning, I specially made corn soup. Daisy smiled and served her son a big bowl of soup. She knew Albert liked this soup. Then I don't need to drink milk. Nia looked very happy. She hated to drink milk every day. Of course, I still have to drink. Daisy put a glass of milk in front of her daughter. Has Albert learned new magic again? Nia glanced at milk and quietly changed the subject. She learned this trick from Albert. The girl planned to pour the glass of milk into Tom's cat bowl when her mother was not paying attention. Nia. Daisy did not know when she appeared behind her daughter, with her hands on her hips, staring at it all. Mom, I prepare breakfast for Tom, he likes milk. Nia quickly quibbled. It doesn't matter, Nia, I still have it here. Daisy poured another glass of milk and put it in front of her daughter, not forgetting to say, remember to drink it all. I hate drinking milk every day. Nia couldn't help complaining. Don't Albert also drink it every day? Daisy reminded. He never complained. This is different. I have never seen Albert hate to eat since I was a child. Nia was a little depressed. The family always likes to use Albert to block her. You can't always compare him with me, then it's a special case. Yes, your brother didn't really like cheese before. Daisy raised her eyebrows and said, however, he eats cheese now. A lie. Nia didn't believe it at all, because Albert's potato pancakes contained a lot of cheese and ham. It's true. Albert rejects some cheeses, especially the ones with strong taste. He doesn't eat them. Herb also finds it very interesting. Now thinking about his son, he is really not picky about eating, even children. Very annoying food, also eat. Children who are not picky eaters grow taller. Albert said without hesitation. What do I want to grow so tall? Nia retorted. You will be more beautiful if you grow taller. Albert reminded. Mom is an example. Daisy obviously liked this sentence and smiled happily. Smuggler. Nia murmured, and under Daisy's lovely gaze, she drank the milk reluctantly. However, she divided half a cup for Albert, on the grounds that he would drink more milk so that Albert could grow taller and look handsome like his father. Daisy and Herb are both taller types, and because of their occupations, they usually pay more attention to dressing up and maintain a good body. More importantly, they are still very young. Originally, Herb planned to take his family to the zoo when he was free today. School was about to start. Albert was going to Hogwarts again. It is estimated that there would be no chance to go out together this year. However, after Albert expressed that he did not want to go, Nia also said that the zoo was boring, and the family changed their original plan and stayed in the living room to chat and watch TV. Nia wanted to ride a toy broom, but Herb refused strict. Lee because she almost hit the TV with the broom last time. The space in the living room is not big enough, and it's not appropriate to ride a broom outside. It's hard to explain when someone sees it. So, the toy broom Luke just bought for Nia was locked in the cabinet by Herb. Actually, Albert also rode a toy broom once, which gave him the illusion of whether he was onset of secondary disease. The toy broom didn't fly high, so he didn't try it again if he felt boring. However, obviously has a strong temptation to fly freely on a broomstick for Nia who does not know what the second illness is. After watching TV for a while, Daisy went to the kitchen to prepare black tea and cakes. A family of 4 and a cat were reading stories of poetry and pedo in the living room. This storybook is a fairy tale from the magic world. The fairy tales in are still a bit different from the stories they have heard before, such as Sleeping Beauty. The story is about a medieval banshee who, because he was jealous of the beauty of the local king's daughter, put a lotion of living ****** on a spindle. She tempted the young princess to touch the spindle and kept her awake. Later, a wizard put a boosting potion on his lips and kissed the princess to wake her up. Well, the magical version of Sleeping Beauty is indeed less romantic. However, the family listened with great gusto, and after all, they did. NT know what living ***** decoction and invigorating medicine were. At this moment, the Anderson family is reading the story of the 3 brothers. Everyone takes turns reading the previous paragraph. This process is very interesting. Are there really any stones that can be resurrected? Nia asked curiously. The magical world is full of infinite possibilities. Since the alchemist Nicol Lamay have used the legendary philosopher's stone for hundreds of years, it seems that it is not impossible to have a stone that can resurrect people. Nia, there is no such thing in the world. Herb reminded, and you should have also heard that the lover of the 3 brothers and the second child has not really been resurrected. This is a fairy tale. There is a saying that fairy tales are all deceptive. Albert said with a smile. Albert really hates him. Can't you give me some expectations? Nia couldn't help complaining. Of course she knew that everything in fairy tales was fiction. Chapter 13. Platform 9 3/4. On September 1st, Albert woke up early, got up from the bed, put on his clothes, moved his body a little, and made himself completely awake. Today, I am finally going to Hogwarts. I can't help but feel a little excited. After washing, Albert began to check his luggage. Are you awake? Then go downstairs to eat. Daisy wearing an apron pushed the door into the room and saw it to Albert who was checking the luggage. By the way, put your robe and peaked hat on top of the luggage. It's easy to find when changing clothes in the car. Albert, do you really not take Tom to school? Nia in her pajamas hugged the short-hair cat and hurried into the room. Let Tom stay with you. Albert said. Where is Shella? Nia asked again. It will fly to Hogwarts by itself to find me. I asked. There is an owl shack over the school. It will live there. Albert didn't want to take an owl to King's Cross. Attracted the attention of many people. The breakfast was as simple as always. Daisy also prepared him a ham sandwich and a can of drinks for him to eat when he was hungry. Food is naturally sold on the train. Daisy is not worried that Albert will be hungry. Herb gave him the remaining gallon. The amount is considerable. They are not worried about Albert spending money because there is no similar precedent. The cumbersome suitcase was released by Albert with the levitat ing charm and was easily carried into the car. Did you bring a camera? Herb asked. Is that the camera your grandfather Luke bought you? Take it. I will write to my home every week and send back photos by the way. Albert said he didn't have to forget this. He would take some pictures of Hogwarts and share it with his family. That's good. Herb nodded. Go. The family arrived at King's Cross station before 10 o'clock. Herb helped Albert put the suitcase on the cart. Albert pushed his luggage to the side of the gambling wall between platform 9 and platform 10. He made a quiet gesture, and casually reached out and probed the wall, and he could pass through. Albert breathed a sigh of relief and returned to Herb's side and said, Okay, then I'll go in by myself. Remember to write, Herb said, and pictures. I know. Albert looked at his sister. Nia, it's cunning. I want to go too. Nia stretched out her hand and gave Albert a hug. Don't mess around at home, don't cause trouble to everyone. Albert asked. I won't. Nia turned her head and pretended to be angry. Son, see you during winter vacation. Daisy gave Albert a hug before parting, then kissed him on the cheek and said, when the time comes, I will take you to skiing. Yes, see you during winter vacation. Albert pushed the car, looked around to make sure there was no one, then trotted to the gambling wall. Disappeared. Nia pointed to the place where Albert disappeared and said, magic is always so magical, let's go back. Herb reached out his arm around his wife and daughter and said, don't worry, Albert will take care of himself. On the other side of the brick wall, Albert found himself at another station. A crimson steam locomotive was parked by the platform. The sign on the train read, Hogwarts Express. There were not many passengers beside the platform. The train departed at 11 o'clock. It was less than 10 o'clock now, and he arrived an hour earlier. After entering the platform, new prompts appeared on the panel, and the 9 3/4 platform was found, and the reward was 100 experience. I also have experience in exploring the map, but only very little. Albert didn't care too much. As if thinking of something, he quickly moved away from the entrance to avoid being hit by people behind. The place where the ticket gate was originally used has now been turned into an archway. And there is still a sign on the top of it, platform 9 3/4. Sure enough, it was almost as described in the book. In other words, this is the first time Albert has taken this kind of vintage train. It is really antique. Strolled on the station with his luggage, randomly found an empty compartment, used the floating spell to move the suitcase in, found a place to put it, and took the door with his hand. Then, he began to change himself into wizard robes. Not long after Albert opened the window, Shira flew over and landed on the table. It seemed that it was not going to fly to Hogwarts by itself, but was going to take a ride. What a clever little guy. Albert touched Shui Xiao's head, took out the owl nuts from the box, and pulled them down. By the way, take a photo, I almost forgot about it. Albert took the camera back to the platform and gave the Hogwarts Express a few close-up photos. It's a pity that his photography skills are really not good, and the photos he takes are only average. Fortunately, Luke probably also expected this situation and prepared a lot of negatives for him. This is not bad. Albert picked a photo with the locomotive, nodded in satisfaction, and returned to his car. He sat down by the window and looked at the platform half-shroudedly. After another period of time, the number of passengers on the platform gradually increased, and the sky started to rain lightly. I always think it rains every time I go to Hogwarts. Albert couldn't help but vomit, feeling that he was right to come early. The wizard on the platform, holding umbrellas in his hands, hurriedly bid farewell to his family in the rain, looking a little embarrassed. I don't know, how many acquaintances can I meet? Albert did not expect to meet the protagonist now. He entered Hogwarts earlier than Harry Potter, and he should be in the same class as the Weasley brothers and Cedric Diggory. Fortunately, it was not with the Savior. Albert didn't want to have too much involvement with Potter. After all, that is the Savior. He is born with a halo of pig's feet and a halo of death. If ordinary people are affected, there is no lucky aura protector. You reading www.uakanshu.com can get cold if you decide. Cedric Diggory is an example. The rain outside got heavier and heavier. Albert narrowed the gap in the window. After Sheila had eaten enough, she began to doze. After all, the owl is a nocturnal bird. Took out a chocolate candy from his pocket, opened the bag and put it in his mouth. Listening to the rain outside, Albert was in a good mood. As long as he doesn't get caught in the rain, he doesn't hate rain. The car corridor gradually became lively, but Albert closed the compartment door, and the noise in the corridor did not affect him much. Open. Dark Force. A Guide to Self-Defense, read it slowly. And pass the trivial time by reading. Albert has read this book more than once, and he has tried some of the spells on it. In fact, throughout the summer vacation, Albert tried all the spells he knew. Except for the Unforgivable Curse, and even tried the Patronus Curse, but the result was naturally unsuccessful. Quickly, the train is about to depart. On the platform, a group of people attracted Albert's attention. The family was hurriedly saying goodbye. Among them were a pair of red-haired twin brothers. This is the Weasley family. Albert looked at the group of celebrities, feeling quite happy, especially Ron Weasley, who still looks a little silly now. There was a girl next to Ron, probably Ginny, and she followed Mrs. Weasley, seeming to feel sorry for not being able to go to Hogwarts. Albert compares Ginny with his sister. Well, it turns out that his sister is more cute. The Weasleys looked a little rushed, probably because they were delayed before they came to the station. Albert looked back because someone was knocking on the door. A black guy stood outside the cubicle. Chapter 14. Earn one wave. Is there anyone here? The African-American boy pointed to Albert's opposite side and asked. No one. Sit down. Albert said with a smile, my name is Albert Anderson. Lee Jordan. The black teenager bared his white teeth, looked at the book on the table in surprise, and said seriously, it feels like you will be sorted into Ravenclaw. I heard that most people who like reading will be sorted out to Ravenclaw. As long as I don't go to Slytherin. I don't care about the others. Albert took out a few chocolate-flavored candies from his pocket and asked, do you want to eat candy? Thank you, it tastes good. Lee Jordan took one, opened the package and threw it in his mouth. I like the taste of chocolate. That's good, take whatever you want to eat. Albert put a variety of hard candies on the table, and sharing food is an effective way to draw closer relationships. This trick, he had tried repeatedly in school before. I think I should go to Gryffindor. I heard that there is the best place. Principal Dumbledore is from Gryffindor. You know, he is the greatest wizard ever. Lee Jordan is very talkative, his mouth is full with candy. I kept talking non-stop. However, his chatter was quickly interrupted. A pair of red-haired twins are knocking on the door. You don't mind squeezing another person? One of the twins said shyly. We are late, the other cars are full, and the girls don't welcome us. Before Albert could answer, the other twin said, this is George Weasley. If I were you, I would try to dry the water on my body. Lee Jordan kindly reminded. I'm Lee Jordan, Albert Anderson. Albert closed the book, put it back in the box, and pointed to the position next to Lee Jordan. See George later. The other twin turned and left. Actually, the other of the twins came back soon and brought his own suitcase by the way. The compartment of the train naturally can accommodate 4 people. After all, this is originally a 6-person seat. It's just that some students will be in the same cubicle with their friends. Even if they have a spare place, they are not welcome to come in. This is the reason why the late Weasley twins cannot find a compartment. This is Fred, my twin brother. George introduced. Even if you don't say it, we can see it. Lee Jordan said. I can't tell who you are. Maybe you should mark yourself so that you can tell. Do you want candy? Albert asked again. Oh, thank you. Mom doesn't like us eating too much of this stuff. The twins took one, opened the wrapping paper and stuffed it into their mouths. It tastes really good. This is your owl, it's so beautiful. One of the twins wanted to reach out and touch it, but she gave it a stern look and gave up. He didn't want to be pecked. It doesn't like strangers very much. Albert explained casually. However, you can try to feed it some nuts, maybe it will be willing to touch it for you. Lee Jordan tried, but it didn't work. Shira ignored him and continued to rest with her eyes closed. The train started, and it began to accelerate slowly to leave the platform. How about the wizarding world? Albert randomly found a topic. You all come from the wizarding world. How do you know? Lee Jordan was surprised. The clothes on your body, your outfits are obviously not qualified. Albert pointed to the clothes on the 3 of them and said, ordinary people don't wear this way. Obviously only wizards don't understand these. Just like we don't understand magic. Same as the wizards of the world. Great, Lee Chowden said with a thumbs up. By the way, there seems to be something in the window. Albert turned his head and saw an owl next to the window. He quickly opened the window to let it in. This is a gray owl coming in, shaking its body, rain splashing everywhere. Shwayla yelled in dissatisfaction, jumped onto Albert's shoulder, and stared at the uninvited guy, very dissatisfied that her nuts were stolen. Don't be angry, just a little nut, I'll buy it for you again after eating. Albert looked at the flying owl and touched Shwayla's head comfortingly. I always think that you are not like a muggle-born wizard at all. Lee Chowden whispered, Muggle wizards don't know this, can I take a look? Please. Albert lifted Sheila from his shoulders. He didn't like an owl standing on his shoulders. This little guy was still a bit heavy. Any news? The Minister of Magic Mill. Listen, Bono announced that he would retire after 1990. Lee Jordan spread the newspaper on the table and said, external rumors say that President Dumbledore is likely to become the next minister. My dad said that if Principal Dumbledore wanted to, he would have become the Minister of Magic very early. Fred obviously didn't believe this. Who do you think has the better chance? George asked. Oh, the Daily Prophet actually held a quiz event. I don't know, but I am a little interested in the above quiz. Of course Albert knows who will become the next minister. If I want to participate in the quiz, what should I do? Someone sent Kanan. Why not? Gambling is not a good idea, Albert. Lee Chowden said seriously. Small bets don't matter. Albert took out the wand, put it on the table vertically. Let the wand fall freely to one side, and casually explained, Ollivander said my wand can bring me luck. So, I'm going to choose, well, Cornelius Fudge. I'm choosing him to be the next Minister of Magic. And this bet is credible in advance. The three people in the cubicle suddenly looked stunned. This is what a show-off operation, and it just shows off their faces. Do you really want to participate in the quiz? Fred swallowed. He thought it was ridiculous. I haven't decided yet. After all, I don't know the magic world. Albert also didn't want his pocket money to be squandered. No, the quiz set by the Daily Prophet is still very reliable, and many people have won prizes in the past. However, there are 15 good wizards. You really want to? George pointed out. Fudge's odds are 4 times. Not the most promising one. Of course, the most optimistic person usually won't succeed. They are usually thrown out to sacrifice, the unlucky person who attracts attention. Albert took the newspaper and carefully studied the way to participate in the quiz. Take out the quill pen from your suitcase, write your name on a piece of parchment, select the contestants and the amount of bet. Then take out the gallons, count 25 gallons and put them in the purse. Seeing Albert count 25 gallons, the three of them couldn't help swallowing. It was a lot of money. In other words, this guy is really rich. It really makes the three of them very envious. When did they touch so many Kanan? If you can have a Kanan in your pocket, you can make them laugh for days. Until Sheila clutched the purse and envelope and disappeared into the rain, the three of them did not recover. Chapter 15. The wizard's taste is a bit strange. You really bet. George Weasley swallowed. That's 25 gallons, in case. He never dared to say the words that he guessed wrong, for fear that he would say it. I believe in my luck and intuition. Albert said quietly. You don't try it, if you guess it. You can make a fortune. We don't have any money. The twins shook their heads after looking at each other. The Weasleys are relatively poor, and even if the twins have some savings, they won't be wasted on guessing. Don't look at me, I want to save some money for other things. Lee Chowden shook his head repeatedly. He only thought that Albert's approach was crazy, and if he really had the money, he would never use it like this. Quote, during the conversation among the four, the train had left London and was speeding along the meadows and fields. Albert was flipping through he newspaper and listening to the trio chatting about Quidditch. In this regard, he couldn't speak at all. Even if he knew the rules, he had to pretend not to be clear. After all, Albert comes from the Muggle world, and it is logically impossible to know these things about Quidditch. By the way, have you heard about Gabriel Truman? George suddenly mentioned the matter a while ago. Natalie was almost fired by the Ministry of Magic. Fred whispered. Later, he went to apologize to Gabriel Truman in person, and the matter was over. I also heard, but my mother said Rita Skeeter's article is not credible. Lee Jordan said, that woman likes to exaggerate facts. Most newspapers are like this, but the content always needs 2 points of truth. Albert closed the newspaper and said, as one of the culprits of all this, he naturally knew what had happened. I've been to Truman's cubicle before and heard him talk to others about it, saying that he met a Hogwarts freshman practicing magic during the summer vacation. And then I received a letter inexplicably saying that it was Gryffindor's fired. Fred said suddenly. At that time, Dumbledore and a Ministry of Magic staff came to the door. The Ministry of Magic had a very bad attitude and didn't even give an apology, so he just. Albert raised his eyebrows when he heard the words. He can only say that Westerners are more ostentatious. He reminded Truman to keep it secret. Obviously he had forgotten it. However, he didn't tell his story. Albert's soul is an Oriental after all. The humility and implicitness in his bones have not disappeared, and he doesn't like publicity. By the way, do you know how the school is divided? Albert changed the subject. I don't know, the family won't tell me. Lee Chowden shook his head and said, Hey, RCY said it would go through a kind of test. George said a little annoyed. They are always reluctant to tell us that it is an interesting thing. How is the life of a wizard? Is it interesting? Albert thought for a while and said, At first, when I received the letter, they were very surprised. My mother didn't even welcome Professor McGonagall. She was worried. I cannot find a job after graduation. That's not true. My 2 brothers have graduated. The twins said in unison. Bill worked for Gringotts in Africa. Charlie studies dragons in Romania. Where is your father? Albert asked knowingly. He works at the Ministry of Magic. The twins looked at each other and said in the same way. I think I will stay in the Muggle world after graduation. Why? The 3 asked in a puzzled way. In their opinion this is difficult to direct. I came to Hogwarts mainly to learn magic and how to use magic. Professor McGonagall said that if you don't learn magic, you may lose control of magic in the future. But in the world of Muggles, we can't use magic at will, and we can't let Muggles know the existence of magic, otherwise we will cause trouble for ourselves. By the way, what do you want to do from now on? I don't want to work in the Ministry of Magic. Me too. The twins looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. It's good to be a Quidditch player. Charlie is the Quidditch captain. I think I fly well. But it's a pity that I can only join Quidditch in the 2nd grade. George said regretfully. I didn't think about it. Lee Chowden said, Where are you? The 3 of them all looked at Albert. Me, find a job that is simple, easy to make money. Is there such a job? The 3 couldn't help but look at each other again. If there is such a job, they want it too. There should be. I'm looking for it, Albert said with a smile. He was curious when the twins gave birth to the idea of a joke shop. If you find it, remember to tell me. Lee Chowden added Albert on the shoulder seriously and couldn't help but laugh. You don't mind if I take a picture of you? Albert took out the camera and said. Photograph. Yeah, my family wants to learn about the magic world. Albert asked the 3 of them to sit together and raised the camera to take a few pictures of them. Why doesn't the photo move? Lee Chowden raised his hand and poked the photo, probably wanting them to move. You reading www.uakanshu.com. Muggle pictures don't move, Albert explained, took the picture and looked at it, and he was quite satisfied. It seems that my technique has improved a bit. What's the meaning of photos that don't move? The 3 quickly lost interest in photos. As it approached noon, there was noise from the aisle of the train. For a moment, a witch ushed opened the compartment door and asked, Honey, do you want to buy some food? I want a BB Duo flavored beans. Lee Jordan said, he has his own food. The twins also brought sandwiches, but they didn't have much money. So they bought nothing. Bring me some of all the food, Albert said to the gracious witch. Just seeing Albert's gamble, the 3 of them felt numb to his lavish spending. For this, Albert paid a gallon and bought a bunch of things on the table. I dare say, your family must be very rich. Lee Chowden muttered. It's not very rich. Albert opened BB Duo beans and ate one, which tasted like bean sprouts. They are all lawyers. What is that? The 3 of them didn't understand Muggles. Those who are litigating for others, you also think they are legal. Loopholes in the law. Albert thought for a while and said. Legal hole in the law. After the 3 listened, they were a little bit confused. What is meant by legal hole in the law? Is it legal to drill into the law? What kind of show operation is this? Help me introduce what kind of food these are. Albert made a gesture of please. He didn't want to eat something inexplicable. The wizard's taste was a little strange. Moreover, this is regarded as an opportunity. For things like friendship, it is said that clothing still needs to be managed and maintained. Chapter 16. There is a generation gap. This is called BB Duo flavored beans. Lee Jordan shook his box and handed it to the three of them. There are all kinds of flavors in it, try it. You have to be careful when you eat this. George warned. He said so many flavors, you know. It means all kinds of flavors are available. Not only the general taste of chocolate, mint, orange jam, but also spinach, liver and belly. By the way, be careful of the taste of earwax. Fred reached out and grabbed one and threw it into his mouth. This one is pumpkin flavor. What flavor is this one? Albert asked, picking up a gray bean. Pepper flavor. If I were you, I wouldn't touch it. George kindly reminded, like me, it tastes like chicken. What about this? Albert picked up something similar to bubble gum. This is Chubo Super Bubble Gum. I know this, chocolate frog. I also ate it last time. Albert pointed to the chocolate frog road. Pumpkin pie, pot cake, licorice wand. George began to explain other weird foods, some of which will change the color of the whole tongue after eating, and some can make various sounds after eating. Animal voice changing candy can make all kinds of animal sounds. Albert opened one, took out one and asked, what is this sound? Do not know. How long will it last? About a few seconds. Albert threw the candy into his mouth, opened his mouth and suddenly roared like a lion, and the others couldn't help laughing. Try it. The one that George ate was a baboon, Fred was a cat, and Lee Jordan was rather unlucky. The one he ate was an elephant. His cheeks were suddenly red and his ears spewed too smoke, which made everyone laugh. Oh, I bought less. Albert thought this kind of candy was very interesting, so he went to other workshops to find the witch and bought another one. Bought it for my sister. Albert noticed the doubtful look of the others, and explained with a smile. Of course, Albert didn't intend to eat these things to fill his stomach. He also took out the sandwich that Daisy had prepared for him. And ate the sandwich under the puzzled eyes of everyone. You also bring food, why do you buy so much? Lee Chowden was puzzled. Because of novelty, if I encounter something interesting, I will send a copy back to my family. Albert picked up a bottle of peach-flavored soda and asked, do you want to try it? What is this? Drink. You may not have drunk it. Albert bought a glass of pumpkin juice, which tasted a little special, just like drinking soy milk. How to open it? The twins looked at the can of soda curiously. There is a pull ring on it. Don't shake it, watch out for the drink inside. Albert reminded, but it was too late, Fredella got sprayed when he opened the soda. I reminded you, don't shake it. Albert couldn't help laughing, and took the each flavored soda from the opponent's hand, only half of it remained. He drew out his wand, cleaned the water stains on the table and on the newspaper, and asked, are you going to try the taste? Said. He raised his wand and tapped it at the candy paper bag on the table, turning it into a plastic cup. Wow. The twins suddenly made an exaggerated voice. What's the matter? Albert looked at them suspiciously, and said, duplicate is a pair. He used the copy spell to turn the plastic cup into 3. You just used magic, right? Oh, the tricks learned in the spell book are very useful. Albert said lightly, is there any problem? Quote, is there any problem? Lee Chowden said feebly, of course there is, I remember you are a Muggle wizard. And then, Albert asked, raising his eyebrows. Are you to say that there is absolutely no way to use magic as proficiently as you in freshmen? Are you too exaggerated? Albert turned off the subject. Would you like to drink? He poured a half glass for each of them. It tastes a bit strange, but it's not bad. It feels a bit like beer, but it's different. You have had beer? Albert asked curiously. George drank it secretly. You haven't drank it secretly. After all, you are not Muggles, it is normal to be unaccustomed to drinking. Albert is not difficult to understand, just like drinking pumpkin juice himself. This is not the point. How did you do it? I heard that transfiguration is super difficult to learn. Lee Chowden said exaggeratedly. It's super difficult. Albert thought about it carefully. It seems that it is not as difficult as the other party said. He asked about the tricks of Truman matches to change needles, and after practicing for a week, he could easily change small items after he fully used the level 1 transfiguration. It's really a bit difficult. It took a long time for the match to be changed into needles, but it will be easier after you become proficient. Half a day. The three looked at each Other and suddenly felt a little autistic and didn't want to talk to each other. You will lose friends if you pretend to be like this. Is it really easy? Well, how much magic do you master? George asked weakly. I tried all the textbooks. Didn't you try magic during the summer vacation? Albert looked suspiciously at several people. You reading www.uaconchu.com. The family won't let us touch the wand. You can try it secretly. And didn't you buy a magic wand? Albert was speechless for a while. Could it be that you have succeeded? Fred asked weakly. Most of them were successful. LSO met Hogwarts students during the summer vacation. We kept correspondence, and he gave me a lot of magic. Boom! A shock of thunder fell from the sky, interrupting Albert's words, and the rain sighed. The car became heavier and heavier. Is this even God can't stand it? Lee Jordan got up and closed the windows to avoid rain. I hope the rain will stop when I get to school. Albert threw a chocolate into his mouth and chewed slowly. The long journey on the train is really boring. What's wrong with you? Albert asked, looking at the silent three people in confusion. Nothing. Fred managed to squeeze out a sentence. I always think you will become a great guy in the future. I feel the same way, Albert said suddenly, and all three of them choked. Haha. Kidding, no one knows what the future holds. The rest of the time, they were all eating snacks and talking about the magic world. Most of them were talking about it, and Albert was listening. When talking about Quidditch, Albert Lee stand to the three people doing their best to explain the 4 ******* and how the 7 players played a game. It was very interesting. It can be seen that the twins want to have a good flying broom and have a wonderful game. I want to try the feeling of flying into the sky, Albert said, although riding a broom is a little weird. Chapter 17. Crossing the Lake. In fact, children living in the magical world are usually boring. The Weasley family's burrow is located in the hills and trees south of the village of Ottery-son-Catchpole. However, most Muggles have not even discovered it. There is a house there. There are only 4 wizard residents nearby. Diggory's house is the nearest, but still a few miles away. Both parties can only ride a broomstick or other means. In fact, the children of the 4 families have little contact. Weasley's children rarely go to the village of Ottery-son-Catchpole, let alone play with ordinary Muggles. However, the twins said that their brother had a Muggle friend and was a pretty girl. Muggles are generally more difficult to get along with. They always think that we are weird people and usually can't go together, and my home is far from the town. Lee Jordan's situation is even worse. He is the only one in his family, so sometimes he doesn't have a playmate. Albert is much better than them. He has a younger sister, a pile of books, and occasionally plays ball with others. However, I usually don't play with a group of little kids, because it's boring after all. Although there are no real good friends, Albert is quite popular at school. After all, they have excellent grades and are very good in all aspects. They are also of a better speaking type, and they also know how to manage interpersonal relationships. Albert asked 3 peep, that children in the wizarding world don't actually go to Muggle schools. It's really hard to imagine that a family like Malfoy would let their children go to Muggle school. Obviously not. Of course, some wizards are exceptions. However, the twins have never been there. Their initial knowledge is taught by family members. By the way, is there a family called Smith in the wizarding family? Albert asked. His grandfather's original family was Smith. Later, he followed Muggles' relatives and changed their names casually. It can be seen how much he hated the guy who abandoned him. Never heard of it. How about you, George? Fred looked at his twin brother. I haven't heard of it either. Lee Chowden shook his head. Nothing. I still don't know where I heard this surname. Albert moved his gaze out of the window. Visibility was low, and the sky gradually darkened. In other words, he didn't even realize that Lee Chowden was a talkative. This guy likes to talk non-stop. The 3 of them won't be bored, anyway. The cubicle is also very boring, listening to him nagging things like hypnosis. Albert opened his eyes again, and he felt that the train seemed to slow down. The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage in the car and we will send it to the school for you. A voice echoed on the train through the loudspeaker. Merlin's beard has finally arrived. Fred stretched out lazily, and he was not in good spirits after sitting on the train for too long. George helped pack the snacks on the table and put them in Albert's suitcase. The train finally stopped, and the four people walked out of the compartment, pushing and pushing along the train aisle, and rushing to the door one after another. When got off the car, it was really busy. They descended to a dark and small platform, and the cold rain fell on the ground, and the chill of the night made Albert shiver. "I hate rain," Albert murmured, took out his wand and said a spell on the peaked cap. "Water and fire will not invade. First-year freshmen come here." A loud voice yelled from the platform. He lifted the oil lamp above the crowd and shook it to attract the attention of the freshmen. "What are you doing? Keep up." Fred reached out and gave him a hand. "Wait a minute," Albert also said to the robe on his body that he was not invaded. He didn't know if the spell would work, but it was better than nothing. "Hurry up, Albert," Lee Jordan urged. "Don't worry, here you are. The fluorescence is flashing." Albert held his wand and walked towards Hagrid. He was really a tall man with a long beard and looked scary from a distance. If you don't know it, and you think it's a dangerous person, it looks really scary. "Are there any first-year freshmen?" "We are all here, let's set off." Hagrid took them away from the platform, losing the shelter of the platform, and the cold rain hit him, causing the freshmen to get goosebumps all over. "Be careful under your feet," Hagrid yelled, but it didn't help at all. Because of the rain, the trail was muddy and many people fell down several times. Alberta pulled the peaked cap and gown on her body, wrapping herself tighter. Fortunately, the curse of water and fire played a role, and he did not turn into a drunkard like other people. "Why didn't I learn to use a magic wand to make an umbrella?" Albert was a little annoyed. He decided to take the time to learn this useful magic, so he won't have to worry about the rain without a fan. "Are you okay?" In front of him, another hapless guy fell down. "Thank you, this way is really choking," the girl who was lifted up said gratefully. "Let's go." Albert let go of the opponent's hand, using his wand to explore the way. Reading www.uakanshu. Com walked forward slowly. "This is definitely the worst freshman ever." Many people fell and were covered in mud. He also heard Lee Jordan, who was unwilling to Lily, whispering insults. He had just been taken by the people around him. Albert suddenly felt that it was a wise decision to stay behind, at least not to be taken down. "Be careful, it's going downhill," Hagrid shouted in front. After he went down, he waited aside to avoid any students slipping while walking on this steep slope. Facts proved that this was indeed a wise decision. Indeed, 3 hapless guys almost fell, but Hagrid caught them in time. "Be careful, you will be at the lake soon." After waiting for everyone to go downhill, Hagrid stepped forward again to lead the way. They bumped and turned around, finally reaching a black lake. On the hillside across the lake, there stands a castle, that is Hogwarts Castle. There are lights flickering on the windows of the castle, which is particularly conspicuous under the rain curtain of night. There can be no more than 4 people in each boat. Remember, no more than 4 people. Hagrid pointed to the boat on the shore and shouted to the newcomer. "Albert, here." One of the twins waved at him. And Lee Jordan was also here. They were all stained with mud and looked very embarrassed. "How are you guys?" Albert couldn't help being amused, and got into the boat. "It's not good. I fell down once and was taken down twice." "Get on the boat," Hagrid yelled. After holding the light to make sure that no one was overloaded, he took a boat by himself. "Very well, then, go ahead." The boat is automatic without oars, and sails forward across the lake. Albert raised his head and stared at the castle in front of him. There was an inexplicable excitement. "Hogwarts, here I am." Chapter 18. Bad Taste. It is a pity that most of the little wizards on the boat have no time to admire the Hogwarts castle in the rain. The cold rain made them tremble. Why do the first-year students take a boat to cross the river? Albert retracted his gaze and looked at the 3 people on the same boat with their teeth shaking. "No, I don't know, I don't want to know at all." "Me too, it's cold." The twins also echoed. Now they are freezing to death. Who is in the mood to pay attention to these things? Albert could not help shook his head. He still knew a little about the boat crossing ceremony. This is actually to let the freshmen who came to Hogwarts follow the same route the 4 founders took when they came to Hogwarts Castle. Why is a group of 4 people actually represents the original 4 founders? It is similar to a kind of inheritance ceremony, so that students who come here can feel the excitement and joy of the founders, and at the same time bear in mind the founders' hardship in establishing the school. Just how many people really understand this now? Hagrid, who guided them across the lake, didn't know. However, few students care about these things. Be careful, bow your head, Hagrid yelled. The freshmen quickly bowed their heads. The small boat carried them across the cliff and sailed to the dock below the castle. It's so choking. I hate rain. One of the twins folded his shoulders and sneezed. Everyone was drenched all over, shaking to the chaff. How did you do it? Lee Chowden asked in surprise. He found that the rain did not wet Albert's robe and peaked cap. A simple magic. Albert noticed other people's gaze, and explained softly. Okay. Everyone follow me. Hagrid carried the oil lamp and led the freshmen up along a gravel-paved path until they reached the lawn under the castle. In front of them was a stone step. The oak door leading to the castle. A witch in an emerald robe was standing in front of the oak door. Albert knew him. She was Professor McGonagall, who had been to Albert's house. Thank you, Hagrid, the freshman will be handed over to me. Professor McGonagall looked at the embarrassed freshman, and Albert felt the corners of her mouth twitch. This is not surprising. The appearance of the new students is no longer awkward to describe. Almost everyone has been drenched in soup, with dirt on their bodies. First-year freshmen, come with me. Professor McGonagall led the freshmen into the castle. Albert followed the team and looked around at this 1,000-year-old castle. That's Professor McGonagall, the Dean of Gryffindor. Percy said Professor McGonagall is very strict. George whispered. Oh, I met her once. My sister really likes Professor McGonagall's trick of turning the teacup into a mouse. Albert's attention was on the stone wall, and he always wondered if the burning torch was eternal fire. It is said that there is a kind of fairy fire that can burn forever, which fits this scene very well. I'm leaving. What are you looking at? Fred gently pushed Albert and urged in a low voice. I'm thinking what kind of magic fire it is. It should not be an ordinary flame. No smoke is seen. It means that this is not an ordinary flame. Fred opened his mouth, not knowing what to say for a while. Albert is going to figure out these things in the future. There are many secrets in this castle that are worth exploring. After Albert gave birth to the idea of exploring the castle, a task suddenly popped up on the panel. Millennium School. Hogwarts. Hogwarts is an ancient and mysterious magic school. It has existed for thousands of years. There are countless unknown secrets hidden in this ancient castle. As a curious secret explorer, you should not let it go. Opportunity. Explore Hogwarts Castle before graduation to find hidden secrets. Current progress. 1%. Rewards 1,000 experience, 1 to 10 skill points. I'm grass. Albert couldn't help but burst into swearing in his heart. It was astonished. This is definitely the most compelling task he has ever seen. Is this to force me to become a night wanderer? It seems that mastering the phantom mantra must be put on the agenda in advance. Albert began to think about how to get the spell of illusion charm. The freshman was led by Professor McGonagall into the waiting room of the branch hospital. There was not much space inside, and everyone was crowded together. Welcome you to Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall said in the opening remarks according to the annual practice. The school banquet is about to begin, but before you go to the restaurant, you must first determine which one you enter. College. Like the leadership speech of the previous life, I said a few words here, and then I pulled it for more than half an hour. Although Professor McGonagall was not so exaggerated, he still gave a full 10 minutes. Albert's remarks to Professor McGonagall can be briefly summarized in 3 points: accommodation, branch and college cup. After talking about the usual Hogwarts instructions, Professor McGonagall asked all the freshmen to line up to clean up the water and dirt on her body. As the deputy dean of the school, Professor McGonagall absolutely cannot tolerate the freshmen going into the hall like this. This embarrassing appearance simply humiliated Hogwarts. Freshmen are squeezing the line, hoping to dry their clothes as soon as possible. Reading www.uiconshu. Calm, wet and cold make them uncomfortable. As this squeezing sardines. Albert looked at the group of freshmen with interest, took a step back, and took the initiative to stay behind the team. The rain did not affect him much. Professor McGonagall moved quickly, skillfully using the descaling curse and drying curse. It only took a few minutes, and soon it was Albert's turn. She looked at Albert a little surprised, and then cast a spell on him. The clothes immediately became dry and warm, and the mud splashed on the boots and pants disappeared. Now, please keep quiet. Professor McGonagall said loudly, I will pick you up when there is ready. After Professor McGonagall left the room, everyone was whispering and talking about the sorting. How to divide the hospital. How can they accurately assign everyone to the appropriate college? Maybe some kind of test is needed. When it comes to testing, everyone is nervous. Watching this scene, Albert suddenly wanted to laugh. He kind of understood why other people were reluctant to tell the freshmen about the way of sorting. Is really a bunch of bad taste guys. Are you not nervous at all? I'm Alia Spinnet. A young girl came over to talk, and Albert gave her a hand earlier. Of course, the girl came to talk to him, probably because of Albert's composure. No matter how he looked like he knew the secrets of the sorting house. In fact, she guessed it right. As long as I don't go to Slytherin, I can accept it. Albert shrugged. He didn't reveal the meaning of the sorting ceremony at all. It was actually very interesting to see the nervousness of the freshmen. Okay, Albert admits that he is indeed a bit nasty. Chapter 19. We have a spy. Professor McGonagall came back before the freshmen had to wait long. She arranged the freshmen in a single line and led everyone into the auditorium. The auditorium of the college is very large, with 4 long tables full of students. Hundreds of candles floated above the crowd, and the candlelight illuminates the entire auditorium. The candle flame is also a kind of magic fire, otherwise the picture of the candles dripping with wax on the head is not too beautiful. When all kinds of weird thoughts were pouring out of Albert's head, the team had come to a stool with a dirty and torn hat on it. It is said that this is a Gryffindor hat. I really hope they can wash the sorting hat well. Albert dislikes the sorting hat because it is too dirty. Maybe it's been 1,000 years, maybe no one has cleaned the hat at all. I can't stand it. When Albert recovered, the sorting hat had already ended its usual opening song to the applause of everyone. Professor McGonagall took a roll of parchment and began to roll out the hospital. Of course, Albert was the first to be named. Who made his last name the first letter A? In full view, Albert stepped forward and sat on the chair, letting Professor McGonagall put his hat on his head. Don't go to Slytherin, don't go to Slytherin. Although he knew that the possibility of going to Slytherin was very small, he still said a few words softly to avoid accidentally falling into the pit. Well, it's difficult. I can see that I am very courageous, not bad at heart, talented, and not lacking in wisdom. The sorting hat asked softly, except for Slytherin, where do you want to go? Albert was speechless. The sorting hat means he is suitable for any college except Slytherin. Oh, I think you have made a choice, so. Gryffindor. When the sorting hat called out Gryffindor, Albert knew what the so-called choice was. If the twins and Lee Jordan met in the carriage, but students from the other 2 colleges, he would go to another college. The sorting hat finally helped him make a choice. After all, Albert still has to stay in the academy for 7 years. He doesn't want to be the first Hermione. He doesn't have a friend. What a tragedy. Of course, there are night tours, and twins are undoubtedly the best night tour partners. After the sorting hat called out Gryffindor, the farthest table on the left burst into cheers. However, the twins and Lee Jordan in the team couldn't help but grow up. And I didn't expect Albert to be assigned to Gryffindor. What about Ravenclaw? After Professor McGonagall took away his hat, Albert walked in the direction of cheers. The front row of the long table was vacated, obviously for freshmen. When Albert passed by, several people stood up and shook hands with him. The other party also had a badge on their chest, probably the prefect or the chairman of the student union. He shook hands with several people one by one, and nodded in response with a smile. The sorting ceremony continued. After the sorting hat called out Slytherin, Albert returned his attention to the sorting hat. Found the figure of Cedric Diggory, and looked at the cannon fodder in the novel. The other party is still a handsome boy, so it's no wonder that he will be called a cream nanny. But I don't know if the other party will become a tragedy. After all, this time I have my little butterfly fanning the wind. As expected, the Weasley twins were also assigned to Gryffindor. A red-haired man was very happy about this and waved to the twins. Albert also took a closer look. It should be the legendary perk. West Weasley. By the way, the Weasley twins were at the bottom. After they were sorted into Gryffindor, the sorting ceremony was over. Professor McGonagall rolled up the parchment and left with the sorting hat, as well as the bench. Disappeared. Wow, we thought you would be assigned to Ravenclaw. Both the twins and Lee Jordan stared at Albert with exaggerated expressions, as if looking at some rare animal. This guy was not assigned to Ravenclaw. Is that sorting hat broken? Is it weird? Albert disagrees. By the way, I just discovered a secret. About the sorting hat. What's the secret? Lee Chowden asked curiously. It's not a secret to tell it. Albert didn't plan to tell them. That's why I was assigned to Gryffindor. Albert's gaze swept across the crowd, and he couldn't help shaking his head. I said so clearly, no one guessed it. Should I say it is Gryffindor? However, everyone no longer paid attention to this so-called secret. After the sorting was over, it was Dumbledore's turn to give a speech, and then it was time to have a big meal with open stomachs. Welcome. Dumbledore looked at the students with a big smile and extended his arms to them. Welcome everyone to Hogwarts. The new semester has begun. Before the banquet begins, I want to say a few words. That is, fool, cry nose, scrap, screw. Thank you everyone. Really just a few words. The gap. This is the gap. Compared to the guys who talk a lot of nonsense, Dumbledore understands the mind of the new life. Knowing that everyone has no patience to listen to nonsense. Do you know the meaning of those words? Albert asked the prefect next to him, turning his head. The court who was asked by Albert had a stiff expression, and he obviously didn't know how to answer this question. At this moment, the prefect suddenly felt that Weasley was right. This guy should go to Ravenclaw instead of staying in Gryffindor. It seems that no one knows this. Can I only ask him himself? Albert murmured. You reading www. These few words of uakonchu.com can be regarded as an unsolved mystery in the story of Harry Potter novels. The few people next to him twitched their mouths, and they didn't know what to say. Is this going to ask Dumbledore directly? Ravenclaw's students are not as curious as you are. This is definitely an eagle hiding in the lion group as an undercover. Hey, come here and throw this guy on the table next door. Ignoring the weird gazes of others, Albert lost his thoughts. In the last life, there were several explanations for these words on the internet. Rumor has it that the Latin meaning of those words is, "May Merlin bless you." Of course, some people think that it is the different attitudes toward people of the four colleges. Ravenclaw students think that those who have not entered Ravenclaw are fools. Gryffindor students think that others are not as brave as they are. Slytherin students think that mixed blood or mudblood are useless scraps. Hufflepuff students hope that students from other colleges can adjust their behavior. As for what the truth is, Albert doesn't know. Maybe he will have a chance to know the truth from Dumbledore. Boom. The roof of the castle was suddenly struck by lightning, and the climate magic that was cast suddenly failed. This scene really shocked everyone. Dumbledore took out his wand and used magic on the top of his head. The lightning and thunder disappeared, the majestic rain disappeared, and everyone's head turned into the night sky dotted with stars again. All right, the banquet begins. Dumbledore raised his spoon and tapped the cup, announcing that the banquet began. The plates on the table were filled with food like magic. Chapter 20. At the banquet. The freshmen were all amazed by Dumbledore's magical magic, but they were already starving, more concerned about the delicious food in front of them. Rather than studying how the principal did it, Albert knew how this was done. Dumbledore was transported from the kitchen below the auditorium through the magic left behind by Hufflepuff, and the Hufflepuff Golden Cup, which was used as Voldemort's Horcrux, was the first Hogwarts house-assisted house elves in making magical food transport vessels. Albert naturally did not forget to take this matter to test the prefect beside him. But the other party's mouth was full of food, obviously not intending to answer this question. The dinner is very rich. Although I can't talk about being refined, it will definitely fill everyone's stomachs. Albert bought himself a steak and sliced it slowly. He is actually not very hungry. He has been eating all the time along the way. The others opened their stomachs and ate. Lee Jordan, who was sitting opposite, was chewing on a chicken leg in one hand, looking very happy. After the banquet began, ghosts also appeared one after another, emerging from all over the castle, greeted the freshmen, and caused a commotion. The ghost of Gryffindor is a male nobleman, and it should be the legendary Nick who almost headless. Mr. Ghost. Albert swallowed the beef and greeted Nick, who was almost headless. I think I prefer you to call me Sir Nicholas de Mincy Poppington, said the ghost. Sir Nicholas de Mincy Poppington. Albert finished the long name. He can remember Nick's name. He still admires his instant memory. Can you take pictures? I mean, can you appear in the photo? What? Boy, I don't understand what you are talking about. Sir Nicholas was very happy that someone could pronounce his name. He hated the newcomer calling himself Nick the Almost Headless. Photograph. Albert said, please take time to take a photo with me another day. Well boy, if you think about that day, if you take a picture, you can come to me. Sir Nicholas agreed, and he had a great affection for this polite little guy. Can I ask another question? Ask my child. What is a ghost? A soul after death. Wizards can leave their mark on the world, and they can walk vaguely where they walked before, but only a few wizards choose this path. Sir N. Nicholas did not answer Albert's question directly. Is it a memory? It doesn't look like it. So, is it really a soul? Albert muttered to himself, knowing that the magical world has a soul. After all, Voldemort had smashed his soul. When he recovered from thinking, he found that everyone nearby was staring at him. What's wrong? Albert asked suspiciously. Nothing. The others quickly retracted their eyes. I still think you should be assigned to Ravenclaw. Fred said bluntly. Swallow and talk. Albert said angrily. Why are you curious about your inspiration? A freshman asked. In the world of muggles, there is no such magical existence as ghosts. Albert said calmly. Now I have a chance to learn about it. I don't want to miss it. By the way, it will feel very cold to be crossed by a ghost. Be careful. He just stabbed Nick with his finger secretly, and he felt that his finger was very ice. Passing through them might be equivalent to being covered with ice water. This is definitely not a pleasant thing in winter. Indeed, there are no ghosts in the Muggle world. A girl who was 2 chairs away from Albert spoke up. Her name was Shanna Wilson. To be honest, when I received the letter, my family thought it was a prank. When Professor McGonagall came to visit, they almost kicked her out. Shanna Wilson thought it was funny. In fact, they didn't want to let me come here. My situation is similar. My mother almost called the police and arrested Professor McGonagall. Albert said with a smile. People who live on the scientific side are usually less capable of accepting abnormalities. They want me to go to Eton. Learn. Eton College. Is it that Eton College? Shanna Wilson was surprised. What is that? Lee Jordan asked puzzledly. That is one of the best schools in the UK. Shanna Wilson explained. Hogwarts is the best. George raised his eyebrows. Of course I know, because there is only one magic school in the UK, Hogwarts is naturally the best. Shanna Wilson couldn't help but despise. Ordinary people, you call muggles, there are thousands of them. There are thousands of schools, and Eton College is ranked in the top 3. I don't need to say what this means. It seems very powerful. George disagrees. In fact, he really doesn't understand. Don't just talk about us, but also talk about your business. Albert turned off the subject and looked at the other girl. I'm half and a half. My mother is a wizard, and my father is a muggle. Angelina Johnson said. They confessed to each other very early. However, we have always lived in the muggle world. I have been exposed to magic since I was a child, and my family was not too surprised when I received the invitation. Alia Spinett next to her said, I was born in a wizarding family, and I have been exposed to magic since I was a child. There is nothing novel about it. When I received the letter, the family was very happy and bought me an owl. After everyone was full, the remaining food on the plate disappeared, replaced by desserts. Albert took a pudding and listened to the new students telling interesting things. After the banquet, the plates on the table were emptied again, like the plates Tom had licked. Professor Dumbledore stood up again and announced to everyone, I am very happy that the school has welcomed a new professor, and Professor Bud Broad will become the new defense against the dark arts professor. There was sparse applause in the auditorium. Professor Bud Broad is an elderly man. There are a few more things to inform everyone. Dumbledore looked at all the students below and said, "Please note that the first-year students are prohibited from entering the woods on campus. Besides, the administrator, Mr. Filch, wants me to remind everyone, don't use magic in the hallway between classes. Finally, the review of Quidditch players will be held in the second week of this semester. Anyone interested in joining the college team, please contact Mrs. Hooch. Why can't you enter the Forbidden Forest? Probably there is danger in the Forbidden Forest," Albert said, glanced at the eager twins. "If you dare to go to the Forbidden Forest, I will write to tell Mom." Percy Weasley stared at his brother fiercely. He knew their personalities too well. "We won't," the twins quickly promised. Chapter 21. Roommates. "Well, before everyone goes to bed, let us sing the school song together." Dumbledore raised his wand and tapped it lightly, and a text twisted by gold ribbon floated in front of everyone. The members of the Hogwarts choir also appeared. The prefect next to Albert was also one of them. The choirs in the front row were still holding big toads. As Dumbledore waved his magic wand, all the teachers and students began to sing the school song at their own rhythm. Albert also mixed in, his mouth closed, pretending to be singing. "No way, the song is in the second grade, and the professors on the teacher bench are all a little stiff, obviously a little reluctant. It's fine for kids, but a group of adults are singing this kind of school song, and feel shameful. Hogwarts, Hogwarts." Next to Albert, the funny Weasley brothers are singing with the melody of Funeral March. The beat can't keep up with the others. The few freshmen around them are one after another. "We will study hard until it turns into dung." After the song was finished, the two were still singing slowly, and Albert suddenly had the urge to cover his face, pretending that he didn't know them. After the end of the song, Dumbledore asked everyone to go back to rest. The entrance banquet finally ended. Everyone rushed forward, causing traffic congestion in an instant. Now, Albert somewhat understands why the newcomer is ranked first. If this is followed by students of other grades, I might go wrong. Think about the students of Gryffindor, who accidentally followed the wrong team and ran to the common room in Hufflepuff, only to find that they were walking in the wrong place. The scene was not too beautiful. The newcomers, all come with me. It was the prefect who led the way for the newcomers in Gryffindor, who was just on stage. He led everyone through the noisy crowd, walked out of the dining room, and after climbing the marble stairs, separated from the freshmen of other colleges. The freshman team walked through the corridors and walked around the castle. Instead of walking up the legendary moving stairs, there are many portraits hanging in the corridor. The characters on them are whispering when the new students pass by, and there are portraits that greet them. The prefect leads the freshmen through the castle. You can never guess where the entrance is. Ming had a closed wooden door in front of him, but they passed through the stone gate on the opposite side. For some doors, you need to hit the exact position before it opens for you. Some doors are hidden behind curtains or behind pictures. However, this is not the worst. Because there is now a hapless trap staircase, which obviously looks the same as a normal staircase, but when you reach a certain step, you need to step over, or if you step in, your feet will sink inside. For newcomers who have just come here, it is simply a disaster. Are you all right? Albert stretched out his hand and pulled Lee Jordan out. Not good, Lee Jordan said irritably. I was taken aback just now. I really don't understand what the school does with so many weird things. I think it's funny, right George? I think so too. These are the defensive facilities left over from the past. And now they have become a major feature of Hogwarts. Albert explained. Come on, I don't want to get lost. I don't know how long they have been walking. When Albert felt that his legs were a little sore, they finally reached the 8th floor and walked through a long corridor to the end. There was a portrait hanging there. The portrait was of a very rich woman. Undoubtedly, this was the legendary Fat Lady, the gatekeeper of the Gryffindor Tower. Password, she asked. Nonsense. After the prefect had finished speaking, the portrait opened like a door, revealing a circular hole in the back. He did not rush in, but turned to the new human. You must remember the password. you can only enter the lounge by giving the fat lady the order. The current password is nonsense. After finishing speaking, the prefect led everyone in through the hole in the wall, which was the Gryffindor common room. This is an old big round room with lots of sofas. In the corner of the room, there was a roaring flame burning in the fireplace, and a lot of wood was placed next to it. Several people were sitting on the sofa and chatting. After the newcomer came in, they looked over here and waved to the newcomer. You have good luck. Tomorrow is Saturday, which means you don't have to go to class. This is a rare opportunity. I suggest you get familiar with the castle during these 2 days. The environment of the castle is more complicated than you think. If you don't want to get lost, it's best to find out the location of the classroom as soon as possible. After the prefect, he pointed to 2 doorways. The girls go over there. The boys follow me. After greeted another female prefect, he led Albert and his party into another door and walked down the narrow spiral staircase. On the way, he encountered many doors. The prefect introduced them to the freshman room, bathroom and bathroom. Of course, the toilet and bathroom are shared. Fortunately, the bathroom has cubicles, thank goodness. As for their respective rooms, they need to find their own rooms, and there is a special name tag on the door. Albert, the twins and Lee Jordan live in the same room. There are only 4 people. The room is not too big. There are 4 beds with curtains, and their luggage is placed beside the bed. Albert found his suitcase easily, took out his pajamas from it with a yawn and put on himself. In the future, please advise. Albert greeted the other 3 with a smile. A lot of advice. The 4 of them looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Tomorrow, I am going to explore the castle. Are you going? Albert took the camera out of the suitcase and walked back to the door to take a photo of his bedroom. Of course. Remember to call me in the morning. The twins looked at each other and said in the same way, how about you? The 3 of them all looked at Lee Jordan. Of course, go together. The black brother obviously didn't want to be alone. Good night. Lay on the bed, clearly sleepy, but still can't sleep. Every time Albert goes to a strange place, he tends to suffer from insomnia. The other people obviously didn't have his troubles. They were fed and drunk, and fell asleep deeply after just lying in bed. Albert turned sideways and opened his task panel. The original exploration progress has reached 3%. I don't know how much he will have to visit the castle tomorrow. He turned over his skill list again, which was quite a few pages. Most of the magic is only level 1, while a few have not yet mastered it. Looking at the skills that were still at level 0, Albert suddenly had the urge to spend experience to upgrade them to level 1. These are all broken habits left over from playing games before, and I always habitually fill up my skills. Albert took a deep breath and turned off the panel, lest he accidentally spent all his hard-earned experience, which may affect his future life. In a daze, Albert fell asleep. He had a dream of himself in his previous life, and he was reading a book with him. He still remembered that it was his first contact with Harry Potter. Are all these dreams? No, this is not a dream. As early as the moment he opened his eyes again after death, he had already confirmed it again and again. This is not a dream. I always feel like the author of a fan story, creating another Harry Potter fan story of his own. It's just that this time, he couldn't describe the content of why he wanted unscrupulously like the author. Wenching is a disease. Chapter 22, Responsive House. When Albert woke up, it was pitch black in the dew. Armatory and the sound of rain faintly came from outside the window. The rain last night has not stopped. Albert sat up from the bed and stretched out his hand to cover a yawn, all to blame for the strange dream last night. When he woke up, he felt very tired. Besides, he woke up too early, and the 3 people in the same dormitory were still sleeping. Albert reached out and touched the head of the bed, picked up the magic wand placed in the corner, and whispered, "Fluorescence flashes." The front end of the wand exudes a pale light. He put the glowing wand on the mechanical pocket watch and glanced at the time, 5:40. Sure enough, I woke up too early. Albert extinguished the light on his wand, lay back on the bed, and the mechanical pocket watch slipped from his hand onto the sheet. This a gift Luke bought for himself to celebrate his receipt of an invitation from Hogwarts. Since he woke up, Albert didn't intend to go back to sleep, leaned forward and sat on the bed again, stretched his waist, pulled off the sheets. Got out of the bed and walked to the window. He opened the cork and opened the wooden window to look out of the tower. A blast of cold wind blows on his face. Albert cannot help but shiver. His head suddenly wakes up. The rain was not heavy, it was still dark outside, and the entire castle was shrouded in a hazy rain curtain. A great adventure. Albert patted his cheek and muttered quietly. Close the window. Albert returned to the bed, took out the robe from the suitcase and put it on, then took the pocket watch and wand by the bed and put it in his pocket. Before he walked out of the dormitory, he stopped again and threw away the clothes he had just changed. Going into the bathroom basket, the house elf will use magic to wash the clothes clean, and then put them back on his bed. By the way, the students at Hogwarts are actually doing pretty well. There are many things that don't need the students to worry about them, they just need to learn magic with peace of mind. The common room was very quiet. Only one female ghost was sitting on the sofa and reading. She heard the footsteps, raised her head and glanced at Albert, and then continued to look down at her book. Albert didn't bother Ms. Ghost. Although he wanted to talk to each other, he gave up in the end. He hated being disturbed while reading. Albert didn't stay in the lounge and plan to wander around the castle before everyone got up, and went to find the legendary House of Responsiveness. Pushing open the door of the lounge, Albert bent over and stepped out of the round door. The fat lady was still wearing a pajamas, and looked sleepily at the leaving student. She asked, "Where are you going?" "Walk." Albert looked into the dim corridor, raised his wand and moved on. This time, he didn't plan to take the road that he came last night, but planned to walk elsewhere. Perhaps, because it is raining outside, the corridor is filled with cold and dampness, much like a ghostly castle in a ghost movie. Ghosts may emerge from the walls at any time, scaring people to death. In fact, there are indeed ghosts in Hogwarts Castle, and there are still a lot of them. Even if there is a ghost coming out of the wall, it is not a weird thing. As soon as he turned the corner, Albert saw the stone steps that came last night. This time, he did not go down, but continued on. Turned a corridor again. Albert found a big vase in front of him, turned his head and looked around, actually let him find the tapestry of the troll wearing a tutu. It seems that I have good luck. Albert speeded up his pace, walked to the tapestry, raised his wand, and looked up at the strange tapestry in front of him with the light from it. It can only be described as being unable to look straight. Group of giant monsters wearing ballet groups on the tapestry, holding wooden or bone sticks, are posing in various enchanting poses. A ballet teacher was trying to teach a giant to dance, but was beaten by a giant with a bone stick. While Albert was observing the tapestry, the troll also stopped beating the ballet teacher and turned to stare at him, as if asking, "What are you looking at? If you bring a camera, Albert will definitely film this very happy scene." However, the most important thing now is the responsive house, which is in the white wall opposite this tapestry. Albert stepped aside, turned around and looked at the white wall, then turned his head, looked at the tapestry, raised his right hand, and made a knocking motion at the troll. The tooth-decayed monster really learned how to lift the bone stick and knock it on the poor ballet teacher. This scene is so sad and tearful. Albert laughed happily, walked to the white wall, reached out his hand to touch the white wall. This is a very hard stone wall. And there is no such thing as a responsive house. The condition for entering the House of Request is to walk through this wall 3 times and concentrate on what you need. Go through. Albert raised his wand, and the pale light illuminated one end of the white wall. There was a window over there. He turned around and saw a tall vase again. So, actually I walked 3 times. A place to practice magic. A place to practice magic. Albert concentrated. Reading www.uakanshu.com walked to the window at one end of the white wall and turned back, then turned back to the vase at the other end. He whispered a word, and when he turned around for the 3rd time, there was a change on the wall. Numerous patterns appeared from the white wall, and a smooth door gradually emerged. Albert is in a good mood because he knows he has succeeded. He held the copper handle, opened the door and walked in. Inside was a spacious room with torches lit around the wall, a bit like a classroom. There are many wooden bookshelves on the wall with hundreds of books. Albert suspects that these books were brought from the library. On the other side, there are some dolls for practicing magic. It's great, Albert said softly. With these books, he doesn't need to go to the library to find books. However, when using this place, you still need to be careful not to be spotted. After all, a door suddenly appears on the wall, which can easily attract the attention of others. Albert did not continue to stay, and turned to leave the responsive room. He was going to think about how to use this place concealedly. If he doesn't want people to know, he needs to make sure he didn't meet anyone when he came in, and he didn't meet anyone else when he went out, so that he could keep the secret here. He needs the phantom spell and a map of vitality. The phantom body curse should be found in the pile of books just now, but it's not easy to get a map in Filch's place. Make one yourself. He doesn't have this ability now. Forget it, take your time. Anyway, I have to stay here for 7 years. After Albert turned and left, the door of the responsive house slowly disappeared again. ND turned into an ordinary white wall again. Few in the school knew that there was a magical room here. Chapter 23, Secret Path in Filch. By the way, my panel shouldn't be a cut-down version, right? There is no map function. Albert was still in the mood to tease his panel function, and he was in a good mood after finding the responsive house. There is no way. In the internet novels I read before, the system that comes with the pig's feet is usually awesome. After the scanning function is turned on, everything is invisible. Now, when you think about it, your panel functions are really pitiful. Actually, Albert is very happy to have a golden finger like a panel. I remember that the principal's office is also on the 8th floor, but I don't know where it is on the 8th floor. Albert murmured. Of course, he didn't intend to touch the principal's office. If the old man Dumbledore noticed him, life at school would be difficult. After all, there are portraits everywhere in Hogwarts Castle, and Dumbledore wants to know what a student is doing. It is easy. Albert turned 2 more turns and found a downward staircase. Went down the stairs and started wandering around the castle, only to find that he was lost. Well, maybe this is not called getting lost, but he has never been here in the future. Albert stopped in front of a wall, and the light of his wand drew across the carvings on the wall. He reached out and tapped on it lightly. It was solid. However, Albert suspects that there is a secret road here. There is no way. The lion body and eagle head beast carvings on the wall are too suspicious. Usually such places will hide secret doors and secret roads. Boy, what are you doing here? Nick got out of the wall next to him and looked at Albert, who was checking the sculpture in surprise. This sudden sound made Albert startled, and he felt that his heart was about to pop out of his chest. Albert took a few deep breaths and eased his excessively fast heartbeat. He couldn't help but complain to Nick. Don't be like this, you will scare people to death. Sorry, I didn't expect to scare you. Nick raised his eyebrows and asked again, what are you doing here? Walk, Albert answered honestly. Walking. This time, Nick looked at the corridor suspiciously. It was still early. Yeah, take a walk. Sir Nicholas, I don't know if you have time to introduce Hogwarts to me. It's like a maze. I accidentally got lost while walking. Albert smiled and looked at Nick. If the other party is willing to help, he can save a lot of time. Oh, I think exploring the castle is a great joy of the new life. Nick tactfully refused. You're right. Albert didn't mind Nick's rejection of himself. After greeted him with a smile, he continued to study the lion and eagle head sculpture in front of him. Nick looked at Albert's back and shook his head to remind him, if you want to open that door, switch on the paw of the lion and eagle. Thank you. Albert heard the words and etched out his hand to the claws of the lion-headed eagle head, tapping lightly. The stone door slowly opened, revealing a narrow secret tunnel inside. See you later, Sir Nicholas. Albert nodded slightly to thank the ghost, raised his wand and walked into the secret tunnel. The inside of is very narrow, and only one person can pass through. It is definitely not a good place for people who fear confinement. Albert can feel that he is going down, and he doesn't know where the secret road leads, but being able to discover its existence is good news for Albert. As expected, the ghosts and portrait. It's living in the castle knew Hogwarts better. The exit was hidden behind a portrait. After the portrait was removed by Albert, The old man in pajamas stared at him unhappily and complained that Albert interrupted him to rest. "Sorry, I'm bothering you." Albert apologized to the old man in the portrait, and continued to move forward. He thought he might be lost again. However, this time Albert found the moving stairs. No matter how many times he watched it, he thought the scene of the moving staircase was spectacular. It is said that the moving stairs and the responsive house are both the handwriting of Rowena Ravenclaw. I wonder if I can reach this level in the future. By the way, does Rowena Ravenclaw hide any secrets in the responsive house? After all, didn't Slytherin just keep a basilisk in his secret room? It really makes sense to think about it. The next time I pass, I can try it. Maybe I can really unearth some secrets. It took 10 minutes for Albert to walk down the stairs. On the way, he encountered a stair change and had to stay in place and wait for the stairs to return to their original state. Fortunately, he didn't let him wait too long. Thank God. No, I should thank Merlin now. As soon as he entered the hall, Albert was attracted by a cat. The cat was a little thin and had a dark gray coat, which was incomparable to his Tom. He bent down to shake it, but the cat ran so fast and disappeared in a slip of smoke. Albert knew that it was probably the caretaker Filch's cat. What was the name of the cat? Although he has read the book of Harry Potter and watched the movie, over time, he can't remember some unimportant things very clearly, especially the names of the famous people. If it hadn't been for having written about the same person and checked a lot of information, I would forget it faster. The cat ran away, probably to call someone. Albert was not worried that Filch would come to trouble him. After all, it's already more than 6 o'clock now, and the sky hasn't fully brightened yet. It's all because of the rain outside. As Albert was about to enter the auditorium, there was a babbling sound, and a little old Filch came over here with an oil lamp. Albert noticed that Filch was still drowsy, with only a cloak on his body, and a pleasant smile at the corner of his mouth. That was the smile that caught the prey. "Good morning, Mr. Filch." Albert raised his hand to greet each other, as if he had met a familiar friend. "Good morning." Filch reached out to catch Albert, but he easily stepped back and avoided him. "Of course, it's already 6:15, Mr. Filch." Albert took out his pocket watch from his pocket, checked the time, handed it to Filch and asked, "When will the hall begin to provide food?" "What?" Filch was also taken aback, because Albie RT deliberately moved his wand to his pocket watch so that he could see the time better. Originally thought he had caught Filch, a night travel student. His face suddenly collapsed, like a child who heard the Halloween party cancelled. In fact, it is already morning. Although it is still dark, no other students have gotten up yet. 7 o'clock. Filch turned away angrily, leaving a sentence before leaving, "Better not let me see." The last few words, Albert did not hear clearly. Anyway, it is not important. But, does Filch really hate students? I can't wait to catch them all and put them in confinement. Pushed the door into the auditorium. It was very dim, the floating candles were all out, and the lively scene last night no longer existed. Albert turned and left, ready to continue exploring the castle's kitchen while now. Chapter 24. Enthusiastic House Elf. Near the foyer on the first floor of the castle, there is a door to the Hufflepuff common room and kitchen. Albert took a moment to walk around the hall and found 2 doors and Filch's office beside the marble staircase. Filch's cat was staring at him. "What is its name?" Albert asked. Filch didn't answer, picked up his cat and went into the office. "It should be jealous," Albert murmured. If he remembered correctly, Filch was a dumb gun. He thinks that since the opponent is a dumb gun, he should abandon the magic world and obediently integrate into the Muggle world. Why should he stay behind to find trouble and unhappiness? Okay, the pesky guy is gone. Which door should I choose? Where will the kitchen be? Albert took a coin from his pocket and threw it on the ground. It was head on, so he chose to walk to the left of the stairs. Behind the door is the next stone step, which is a wide stone corridor. When Albert walks by, the torch on the wall will automatically ignite to illuminate the surrounding environment. Albert found pictures of various foods on the surrounding walls. Good luck. Albert found a large portrait. The portrait was a huge silver bowl full of fruits. It is said that the kitchen is hidden behind the painting. The secret of entering the kitchen is on the pair. Albert lightly touched the big green pear. The pear squirmed and chuckled, and suddenly turned into a big green doorknob. Sure enough, I am here. It seems my luck is not bad. Albert was in a good mood. After finding the responsive house, he successfully found the kitchen, reached out and grabbed the door and pulled it. The area of the kitchen is the same size as the auditorium above. There are many tableware on the surrounding cabinets. There are also 4 long wooden tables in the auditorium. These tables are placed at the same size as the 4 colleges in the auditorium above. The tables are exactly the same. Some food has been placed on the table, which should be the breakfast for the students. When the meal is reached, the house elves will use magic to transfer the food to the waiting table above. Sir, what's the matter? A little elf spotted Albert and ran towards him. The restaurant hasn't opened yet, so I will come to the kitchen. Albert smiled politely at them. Please come with me, sir. The house elf grabbed Albert's hand and took him to sit at the table. 6 house elf hurried up, carrying a large silver tray. On it was a jug of milk, ham, omelette, toast, salad, and pumpkin porridge. Thank you, little guy. Albert poured himself a half glass of milk. Although he didn't have the habit of drinking milk in his previous life, he has developed this habit over the years. Thanks to this, he has become much stronger than in his previous life. This is our honorable gentleman. Someone probably said thank you, and the house elves all smiled and bowed to him. Albert ate a portion of ham, fried eggs and 2 slices of toast, and drank a small bowl of pumpkin porridge. His stomach was filled with food all at once. When he wiped out the last small fruit salad, he looked at these house elves. They were all dressed, not to be said. They were wrapped in a tea towel with a Hogwarts emblem. I think I should go. Thank you for your breakfast. Albert noticed that the exploration progress had reached 7.3%. This is what we should do, sir, the house elf said in a sharp voice. Before Albert left, many elves next to him gathered around and handed him many snacks for Albert to take home to eat. Enough is enough. Goodbye, little guys. Albert packed 4 pies into a craft paper bag and stuffed them into robes. This was for the 3 Georges. The house elves all rushed to the door and watched Albert leave. They liked the thank you, which made the house elves feel Albert's respect and affirmation for them. Following the path yesterday, Albert took a few minutes before returning to the lounge. However, there is still no one inside, and the ghost lady has also left. When Albert returned to the room, the twins were still asleep, and Lee Chowden was already awake. He looked at Albert who peered outside the door with a surprised face and couldn't help asking, "Where are you going?" "Walk and have breakfast by the way." Albert grinned. "I brought you gifts back." "What gift?" Weasley and the right got up from the bed and scratched his head with his right hand, as if he hadn't woken up yet. "I thought you were sleeping." Lee Chowden got off the bed, stretched his waist lazily and asked, "What gift?" "Pies." Albert took out the craft paper bag from his pocket, took out a pie, took a bite, and handed the paper bag to Lee Jordan and said, "One for each." "Where did you get it?" Fred asked curiously. "The kitchen." "Wow, you found the kitchen. By the way, you sneaked out by yourself, and you didn't even call us together." Fred was also sober. If it weren't for the bed, Albert could not tell who the twins were. "Don't brush your teeth first." "Oh, I almost forgot about it." George put down the pie on his hand and asked curiously, "How did you find the kitchen?" "Walk around, happened to find out." Albert said again about his encounter with Filch. "His cat is very smart and will inform his owner, but I think Filch is here to trouble me. I dare say, he must be very aggrieved." Fred also couldn't help but laughed, got up to go out and strolled. Hogwarts Castle is really interesting. All 3 of them got dressed and washed up and came to Gryffindor's lounge. There was no one here. Albert lit the fire and sat on the sofa next to him. The rain had stopped outside. Bill and Charlie said there are many secret passages in the castle. Fred said to the others while eating pie, "But they don't tell us where the secret path is." George blamed his brothers a bit. "Maybe they want you to explore the secrets of the castle by yourself." "That's interesting." Albert remembered Nick's words and comforted them casually. "I think so," Lee Jordan echoed. "By the way, I almost forgot about it." Albert walked to the entrance, taking advantage of the fact that there was no one in the lounge. And took a few photos, and by the way, took a photo of the fat lady. Are you taking pictures again? I am going to send a letter to my home. For muggles, everything in the wizarding world is very strange. Albert checked the photos. He had previously discovered that he had another photography-related skill. I heard Charlie say that Filch likes to trouble students. He wants to hang up students who made mistakes and beat them with whips all day long. George continued after eating the pie. Filch also knows the secrets of many schools. Dow will always come out silently. Ost students who travel at night will be caught by Filch. Fred added. Then he was severely deducted and locked up. Chapter 25. Future Players. It sounds like Filch is like a big devil. Albert Th. Ought the twins' evaluation of Filch amused, a bit like the immediate feeling of former students treating the strict housekeeper as an old witch. No, everyone hates him. Fred said seriously. Even people like Percy said that. I really can't think of other reasons for not believing. What is the kind of person like Percy? Isn't he your brother? Is it really good to say that his family is like this? Albert resisted the urge to complain, took out his pocket watch from his pocket to check the time, and turned to face the three said, well, time is almost up. Go to the hall for breakfast first, and then walk around the castle. This time, they took the road Albert took in the morning, and the twins showed great interest in the secret road. When passing the moving stairs, there was no waiting and arrived at the hall smoothly. When I walked into the auditorium to have breakfast, the 4 long tables were basically empty, and the enchanted ceiling was gray and it might rain at any time. We are probably the first batch to get up. George Weasley was cutting the potatoes on the plate with a knife, looking up at the empty auditorium, and said in a slightly helpless tone, I don't remember the last time I got up so early. When is it? 3 years ago. Fred said suddenly. You still remember? George looked at his brother in disbelief. Is it a guess? Of course I guessed. Fred couldn't help laughing. Are you serious? Quote, it really is like this. What are you painting? Lee Khan asked. Record where we have just walked. I'm going to draw a map of Hogwarts. Albert flipped the parchment to show them the content. I'm even more curious about what's in your hand. Fred stared at Albert's pen. He found that Albert had been drawing, but he never got any ink. This was abnormal. You mean this pen? Muggles use it for writing. Quill pens can't be carried around and used, and it's not very convenient to use. Albert handed his pen to Fred. This is the birthday present I bought for him is not a good one. But it has been used for many years. It feels a bit like a quill. Fred said, looking at the nib. Of course, the principle of a fountain pen is similar to that of a quill pen. Its advantage is that it can store ink and can last for a long time. Albert handed the parchment paper to the 3 of them. We are now in the auditorium. From the marble steps to the moving staircase, Filch's office is nearby. There are also 2 doors leading to the basement. The door on the left leads to the kitchen, the left side from the stairs, and I am on the right. Haven't been there yet. The kitchen is probably here. The entrance is a huge silver bowl full of fruits, and the doorknob will appear when you touch the big pear. Your record is really detailed. Lee took the park. Meant and looked at the location of the kitchen. He felt that if he was in the past, he should be able to find it. He handed the parchment to one of the twins and asked, we will go later. Where? I am going to find the specific location of the classroom first, so that I won't find my way in class next time. Albert put up the parchment George handed back and said, then, stop by and see if we can find the secret roads. It is usually hidden behind tapestries, stone carvings, stone walls, and even pictures. According to you, it shouldn't be difficult to find the secret passage. After Fred wiped out the baked potatoes on the plate, he was a little eager to try. No, the point is that some secret passages require specific passwords or touch certain special locations. Albert shook his head. At the beginning, I was able to find the kitchen. Or I found the entrance by accident because I touched the portrait. Oh. Why do you think that painting has a secret? A girl's voice sounded nearby. And Albert turned his head to look over. It was Angelina, a freshman from the same college, and had a few words last night. Of course it is because it is too suspicious. The size of the fruit rtrait is almost the same as that of the fat lady. It's like telling everyone that there is a secret road here, Albert said in a natural tone. Oh, after the four listened, they couldn't understand Albert's logic. However, the facts are that Albert's guess is correct. In other words, this guy's brain is really good. Johnson, are you alone? Albert asked suspiciously. Where is your roommate? You can actually remember my last name. Angelina's face showed a surprised expression. In fact, even her roommate could not remember her name. After all, everyone has only known each other for a while, and they didn't even say a few words. It's normal if they can't remember. My memory has always been good. Albert introduced with a smile. This is Lee, and the twins are George and Fred. Of course, don't ask me. Who is who? I don't know who I am. This is George, George Weasley. No, I am George, he is Fred. The other twins retorted. Many twins like to play this kind of tricks. They like to wear the same clothes and the same dress. It makes people wonder who is who. Albert suddenly looked at the owl flying here. You forgot to introduce yourself, Albert. Lee Chowden reminded. Oh, sorry, I saw my owl. Albert picked up a piece of bread, shredded it, and fed it to Sheila, who fell on the table. My name is Albert Anderson. Anderson, don't you eat? Angelina asked suspiciously. She made herself a sandwich. I just ate in the kitchen. Just call me Albert. Albert touched his owl and said, on weekends, I have something to send home. Remember to come to the hall in the morning. Quote, Sheila yelled, indicating that she knew. Another owl flew into the hall and threw a copy of the Daily Prophet at Albert's table. However, its accuracy is so good that it almost beat George's pumpkin porridge. If it weren't for Fred's fast hand, it would have been soaked in the porridge. Then, if you dip it in jam, you can eat it. Can you lend me a look? Angelina picked up the newspaper and asked. I want to see the Quidditch column. Albert said, oh, of course. Do you like Quidditch too? The twins asked in unison. Of course I like it, but unfortunately, I can't participate in the Quidditch selection in the first grade. Angelina was very sorry about this. Yes, if Quiddly lacks people, you can get Professor McGonagall's consent. Albert noticed that several people were staring at him, and shrugged helplessly. Said that the first grade cannot participate in the selection. But there are always special cases, right? The rules themselves are used to break. Oh, forget it. Angelina didn't think she could make Professor McGonagall change her mind. I have already found out that next semester, Gryffindor will graduate with a famous golf chaser. I am going to sign up and try it. What about you? The twins said in unison. The batsman is more suitable for us. Chapter 26. Open Sesame. I think so. Albert couldn't help but smile, squinting to catch a glimpse of the passing ghost. And raised his hand to say hello to the other party. Good morning, Sir Nicholas. Good morning, boy. What's the matter? Will Sir let me take a picture? Albert raised the camera and asked. Oh, okay. Nick thought for a while and asked, do you need a pose? No, come on, look here. Albert adjusted an angle and clicked on. Nick, is it all right? Okay, thank you, Sir Nicholas. You're welcome. Then I'll go first. Nick quickly drifted away. Angelina leaned over, wanting to see what Albert had taken. There was nothing in the picture. It seems that the Muggle camera cannot capture the ghost. Maybe it can be done with the wizard's camera. Albert wrote Sir Nicholas de Mincy Poppington on the back of the photo. It's so bad for you to remember his name. Angelina admired Albert's memory. At least she couldn't remember this string of names herself. It's not a problem with the camera. A voice sounded. Albert turned her head and saw a beautiful red-haired girl who had just entered the auditorium. She noticed that several people were looking at her, and she explained, after the photo needs the correct developing potion, the people inside can move. Also, ghosts are spirits, and they will not be photographed by the camera. After that, the girl walked to Ravenclaw's table. Wow, really worthy of the Ravenclaw student, knows so much. George exaggerated. It's really amazing. Albert sighed with emotion and looked at the invitation to Angelina. Do you want to go shopping with us to other parts of the school after you finish eating? Forget it. Angelina hesitated, but refused. I have an appointment with someone. That's a shame. Albert picked up a piece of fruit and gnawed at it, thinking about how to get the developer potion. There are more and more students in the auditorium. Most of them are freshmen. Perhaps because of weekends, the upper grade students sleep late, but the freshmen can't wait to visit the school. After bidding farewell to Angelina, the four of them walked out of the auditorium chatting. When they passed the hall, they all noticed that Filch was holding the cat and staring at them. Albert stopped and found that there was an extra task reminder on his panel. Malicious from the administrator. You have been targeted by the administrator Filch at Hogwarts. It is time to fight back. During the night tour, get rid of Filch, the administrator, so that he can understand that even if he focuses on you, he cannot catch you. Any clues? Reward: 1000 experience. After watching the mission, Albert's mouth couldn't help but twitched. He found that after coming to Hogwarts, the trigger panel missions seemed a bit trivial. What's the matter? Fred asked, looking back suspiciously. Nothing. Albert took a few steps to keep up with the team. The four of them crossed the damp viaduct, and he suddenly asked, "Do you know the spell of the phantom spell?" "What is that?" George asked suspiciously. "It is said to be a kind of invisibility magic." Albert explained, "I have read in a book, this kind of invisibility spell can make the disguised person or thing become like a chameleon." "Sounds cool." George raised up to the spell. "If you can master it, you don't need to worry about getting caught when you wake up at night for a night tour." "I think so too, at least there is no need to worry about Filch." Albert nodded his head, and he was ready to master the phantom spell and then swim at night. "But how do we get the spell?" Fred was a little depressed. "Dad may know, but he will definitely not tell us." "How about asking the professor?" Lee proposed. "For the time being, I can only find it in the library." Albert said, "Of course, if you can't find it, you can ask the curse professor, but I am a little doubt that he is willing to teach us this spell. After all, he might think of night travel." Quote, "A few people looked at each other and sighed helplessly. If they could master this magic, it would be much easier to do many things in the future." Albert stopped by the viaduct, put his hands on the railing and looked down. He still remembers that at the end of the novel, Harry Potter broke the old wand and threw it off the bridge. That prodigal son. The old magic wand is a good thing. Even if you don't need it, you can hide it somewhere unknown. That was a real artifact in Harry Potter's novels, and the other was a philosopher's stone. As a result, both good things were destroyed. Anyway, find the library before talking. Even if we find it, we probably won't learn it for the time being." Lee said a little discouraged. He didn't forget that he didn't even master the simplest magic. "Don't say such frustrating remarks." Albert cast a look at Lee and contemptuously said, "How do you think I master other magic?" "How did you do it?" the twins asked curiously. "Of course you have to spend a lot of time practicing, otherwise do you expect to learn it soon?" Albert said gruffly. The four of them walked and talked about the phantom body curse. After strolling on the first floor of the castle for a long time, they found a few empty classrooms with piles of debris, and a place that seemed to be a secret tunnel. But none of them opened the secret tunnel. The four of them are very depressed. Most secret passages require a specific password or a special rhythm to open. Albert explained to the three as he walked, "If you want to find it, you can only try your luck, or ask other secret passages people, but I dare say they will not tell us easily." Quote, "Transfiguration classroom." George reminded, Irene. MBER Professor McGonagall teaching Transfiguration. Lee Jordan whispered, "I heard that this course is extremely difficult to learn." "It's really difficult." Albert discovered this when he was studying on his own. It took him the most time to turn a match into a needle, but after learning it, most of the transformation techniques were actually not that difficult. Of course, it may also be related to his panel skills. The four found the magic history classroom on the second floor of the castle. Fortunately, the classrooms are marked, otherwise they really don't know where to find it. "There is a wooden door here. I think it should be a secret road." Lee Jordan excitedly pointed to the entrance road hidden behind the stone statue. "It seems to be locked." Albert drew out his wand and opened the wooden door in front of him with Aracho. "Your spell has failed." Fred reached out and twisted, but still did not open it. "I guess what password is needed to open it?" Albert muttered. "What do you think the password is usually?" Lee Jordan asked, rhetorically. "How could I know?" Albert gave Lee a blank glance, then thought about it and said again, the most famous secret password in the Muggle world is Open Sesame. This story comes from Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. Speaking of which, Albert's wand happened to knock on the wooden door. The next moment, the wooden board on the door was torn off the hinge. And it was about to break into a pile of firewood. The four of them couldn't help but grow their mouths, their eyes almost protruding from their sockets, and they didn't realize what happened just now. Chapter 27. Backpot. The curse stops immediately. Albert looked at the wooden door that was almost torn down, his eyes twitching. Merlin's beard, what should I do now? He three Weasleys looked at the broken wooden door, swallowed their saliva, and couldn't help taking a step back, not realizing what had happened just now. Aren't we? Fred raised his hand and made a quick gesture. It would be no good if he was caught accidentally. Don't be stupid. Powerful wizards usually use tracking manifestation magic to know who has been here recently. Albert reached out and held Fred's shoulder, reminding him not to slip away. Then what shall we do? George looked at Albert anxiously. I should be able to repair it. I remember the spell should be repair as before. Albert quickly calmed down, raised his wand and aimed it at the torn wooden door, and concentrated on chanting the repair spell. Was originally torn off the wooden board from the hinge, and then flew back to the door. The crack slowly healed, and it would soon be restored. However, before the wooden door was completely restored, the door suddenly opened from the inside. The four people froze in place. Because Professor McGonagall walked out from behind the door, looked at the wooden door that was slowly being repaired, and then looked at the four people standing in front of him. The surrounding atmosphere suddenly became a bit awkward. What the asterisk are you doing? Professor McGonagall's old face twitched, and he stared at the four sternly. Just now, she heard movement from the secret door of the office. When she came to check, she found that the door of her office had been demolished. This scene stunned her immediately. Sorry, Professor, we didn't know that opening sesame is a spell. Albert immediately apologized and admitted his mistake. I think it was just an accident. Needless to say, Mr. Anderson, come in, and a few of you. Professor McGonagall looked at the four people blankly and let them enter his office. This was just an accident, Professor. Albert repeated softly. The twins behind him and Lee Jordan both held their breath, nervously unable to speak. Very good repair spell. But, Mr. Anderson, I have to remind you that Open Sesame has been an unlocking spell hundreds of years ago, and nowadays wizards don't use this kind of rough magic. Professor McGonagall looked at Albert, reminded, if you have watched Standard Spells, Elementary, you know, now everyone loves the dexterous Alaho Cave. I know. However, the opening of Araho Cave will not work for this door. Because the anti-Araho hole curse was released on the door. Professor McGonagall explained, so your spell did not take effect. This is the knowledge of the spell. I think Professor Esser Flitwick will be very happy that you ask him these questions. Quote, I will. Don't take this as an example, gentlemen, otherwise it's confined. Professor McGonagall didn't seem to want to blame a few people. He turned around and fetched a piece of parchment from the table, handed it to Albert and said, this is the first-year curriculum schedule. Post it on the Gryffindor bulletin board. There won't be another time, I promise. Albert gave a light cough, took the freshman curriculum that Professor McGonagall handed over, and quickly pushed the twins and Lee on the backs, and walked out of Professor McGonagall's office. I was scared to death. When they were far away from Professor McGonagall's office, everyone dared to speak. We actually opened the door of Professor McGonagall's office. Lee Chowden still looked incredulous. Good luck. No points were deducted, and no confinement. Albert opened the course schedule given by Professor McGonagall and took a look. The first session of next Monday is the spell class. But, great Albert, your door-opening spell actually opened the door. Fred's eyes sparkled with excitement. This is just an accident, I don't know it is a spell. Albert took his wand and tapped the parchment. The original curriculum was divided into 2 and 2 into 4. He divided the timetable among 3 people. There won't be any flight lessons until Thursday afternoon. George was a little disappointed after reading the schedule. He was looking forward to flying in the sky on a broomstick. Don't you think the number of courses is a bit small? Albert frowned after watching the 1-week course. Hogwarts felt more like stocking teaching. The lessons are a little bit short, are you crazy? Li Yong looked at Albert in disbelief, as if he had been under a strange curse. In a Muggle school, there are at least half the courses. Albert thought about it and guessed the reason. There are only a few professors in the school. If there are 2 sessions a week in a grade, a professor needs to teach 24 sessions. The 4 colleges in grades 6 and 7 will go together. Saturday and Sunday are closed, which means that their entire week of classes is full. Thinking about it now, it's not incomprehensible. What are you thinking about? George asked. It's nothing. Let's go. Continue to look for the classroom. Albert put the timetable in his pocket. Eden took the lead to walk towards the marble stairs. At present, the 4 of them have found the Transfiguration classroom and the Magic History classroom on the 2nd floor of the castle, as well as the abandoned bathroom. He still remembered that there was the entrance to the Slytherin chamber, and there was a dangerous basilisk inside. Because it is a girl's bathroom, the 4 of them just passed by and did not intend to go in. So as not to be misunderstood. The exploration of the castle is quite rewarding. Reading www.uakanshu.com was near the corridor of the magical classroom on the 4th floor. The 4 people found a secret road behind the tapestry. The end of this secret road was near the armor corridor and the prize showroom. I think all the Hogwarts tapestries hide the secret tunnel, Lee Jordan said jokingly when he walked out of the secret tunnel. No way, the secret paths they found today are hidden behind the tapestry. It's not surprising that there will be such a misunderstanding. I dare say that most people can find these secret paths. George was a little disappointed. He hoped to find more hidden secret paths that others didn't know. We will find it. Go in and have a look, the prize showroom, Albert proposed. In fact, he was a little curious whether these medals and trophies were made of gold and silver. George, Fred, Lee Jordan pointed to a cabinet and said, look at this. Your eldest brother Charlie used to be the Quidditch captain and won the Quidditch trophy for the academy. Yes, but he only won the championship once. George looked at the All-Slytherin trophy a little depressed. Gryffindor and Slytherin were never right. The people in Slytherin sometimes do whatever they can to accomplish tasks. Fred muttered. He added, Percy told me. Yes, those guys at Slytherin College are the most annoying. Fred agreed. Percy said that once Slytherin fell out of the first place by a bit, they would do whatever it takes to deduct the second place. Points. Snape will favor his students and never give them points. Many students in the school don't like him and always call him the old bat. Albert suddenly twitched when he heard the twins' words. Although it's a joke, don't throw all the pots on Percy's head. What he said is your elder brother, not the brat. Chapter 28. Be a dead man. Hogwarts won a lot of trophies. Albert also found the trophy of the Triwizard Tournament, the trophy of the International Wizarding Chess Tournament, the Golden Crucible of the Magic School Potions Championship, and the creative ideas of the Cairo International Alchemy Tournament. Medals. Of course, there is also Voldemort, that is, Tom Riddle's Special Contribution Award can also be found here. If only I can get a trophy and put it here. Lee Jordan looked at the trophy on the counter with envy and admiration on his face. I think Albert may have a chance. As for you, forget it. The twins appeared behind Lee from left to right, put one hand on his shoulder, and smiled comfortingly. No one can tell in the future. Albert casually comforted, maybe you can get a trophy or something here. The Special Contribution Award is very simple. As long as you discuss it with Dumbledore, go donate 5,000 or 10,000 gallons to the school, he will definitely help you get one. When the 3 of them heard the words, they couldn't help but twitch. What is meant by donating 5,000 or 10,000 gallons? Why can you easily say such a thing? That's canon. The twins didn't have a gallon in their pockets. They even wondered whether their family property was worth so much money. Lee Jordan broke free from the twins' hands and asked, don't you want to? Actually, I'm even more curious about how much bonus I can get. As for everything else, it's imaginary to me. Albert shook his head and interrupted the other party. He values gold coins more than glory, and money is the most real thing. Especially at that time in his last life. There was a saying that it is easy to do things if you have money, and there is another saying that you are confident if you have money. Don't look at me this way, I'm just more realistic. Albert coughed and quickly changed the subject. Let's go to the 5th floor. I have a hunch that the library is probably on the 5th floor. You are right, money is a good thing, and I hate poverty. The twins looked at each other and did not deny Albert's words. It should be said that no one likes poverty. Especially the Weasley brothers from a poor family, they can understand this better. The four pushed and shoved to the 5th floor, and they really let them find the library, but at this point in time, the library hadn't opened yet. Go and see other places first, Albert proposed. This is a very wise choice. Because the four of them actually found the entrance of the suspicious secret passage, just behind a tall suspicious mirror. What are you doing here? As they checked the entrance, Snape appeared silently behind the four. We are looking for a shortcut, Professor. Albert didn't care too much about the other party's gloomy face. Of course he could guess who the guy in front of him was. Shortcut. Snape stared at Albert's eyes, but Albert turned away from him. We think there is a shortcut to other floors. It is well known that the easiest way to avoid it being caught in the mind is to not let your eyes look directly at the other person. Oh, open it. The mirror suddenly slid down to one side, revealing a gap. Snape frowned when he saw this, as if he was about to say something. But Albert interrupted him. By the way, Professor, can you let me take a photo? Albert raised the camera and asked sincerely. Not only Snape, but George's three expressions froze and became a little weird. Snape stared at Albert blankly, his face always smiling, ignoring Snape's death gaze. Sir, can't you? Albert asked again. If you have time to hang out. No, sir, we didn't hang out here. Albert said solemnly. Just seize the free time and figure out the layout of the castle classroom as soon as possible. For any freshman, this is very necessary. After all, does Hogwarts not send us maps? The shortcut to the castle can also prevent new students from being accidentally late. This time, even Snape could not say what he had just said, and the three people next to him were even more stunned. Why can you speak so confidently? However, it sounds reasonable. Hogwarts Castle is indeed like a labyrinth. If the school does not send out a map, we are no allowed to come out and familiarize ourselves with the distribution of the castle. Snape's lips trembled slightly, and he stared at Albert coldly. If you have a lot of time, why not watch Magic Potion and Potion several times? Next time in class, I will ask questions first. You disappear from my eyes now and immediately. Then, see the professor on Friday. Albert waved his hand with a smile, pushed the three people next to him, and disappeared at the end of the corridor after turning in. Wow, you actually want to take a picture of Snape. You actually dare to slap him head on. The Twins Chi-Chi gave a thumbs up to Albert and couldn't help laughing. Don't you know? He is famous. I didn't frustrate him. What I said was the fact. Albert didn't admit that he didn't have Snape, he just told the fact. Yes, it is true. George nodded repeatedly, and even the three of them had to admit that this was a fact. So, Snape can't do anything to him either. You reading www.uakanshu.com. By the way, what did you just say that Snape is famous? Albert turned off the subject and asked, what is famous? Famously unreasonable. George couldn't help laughing. However, his expression was really funny just now. You said, where does that passage lead? Lee Jordan was more curious about this question. I don't know. Let's check it out when I have time in the afternoon. Albert found that a new task appeared on his panel. Is a dead little expert. Snape is one of the most popular professors at Hogwarts in the history of other colleges. You have successfully molested each other once, why not continue this feat? Mission completion degree is 1/5. 2,000 experience points are awarded. Is really an expert. By the way, what are you going to do? Fred suddenly said, that. Albert asked puzzledly, which one? Quote, it's just a question. Lee Jordan reminded, didn't Snape ask you to be asked in the first class? It's okay. Just ask questions, as long as you don't exceed the knowledge of Magic Potion and Potion, there will be no big problems. Albert is still very confident in his memory, and all questions are drizzle. I almost forgot about it. I was a bit looking forward to next Friday's potions class. The three looked at each other, remembering that the man in front of him was super strong in memory and had a super good brain. He should respond to Snape's question. Not a problem. If you get everything right, will Snape give you extra points? George said suddenly. Definitely not, Albert said with certainty. I think so, then, everyone will be able to see what kind of professor he is. Chapter 29. Cooking Pot. As it approaches noon, Hogwarts Castle, which has been silent for a whole night, is rejuvenated. Albert can occasionally meet other students in the hallway. It can only be said that it is the nature of most people to stay in bed, especially on weekends. Most people prefer to sleep longer when they don't need to get up early. There is still light rain outside the castle. Most students will stay in the auditorium and chat. There are also a few hapless ones who did not complete their homework in time and are busy copying summer homework. On the way to explore the castle, the Weasley twins and Lee Jordan couldn't hold on, and took the lead. However, Albert still spent the whole morning strolling around the huge castle and took a lot of interesting photos with his camera. After walking around, when he returned to the auditorium, he felt a faint pain in his calf. The harvest of this trip was quite good. Albert used his memory to draw a rough map of the castle. Although I heard other people say that the position of some of the stairs in Hogwarts Castle will change every Friday, but that is next Friday. Albert does not take it to heart. And it will naturally be resolved by then. Method. It is worth mentioning that the mission progress of exploring Hogwarts Castle has reached 26.7%. Why are you the only one? How many of your friends? Angelina and another girl walked towards this side, sat on the chair opposite Albert, and said hello to Albert. While walking around the castle, I drove halfway. Albert took a slice of bread from the plate. And he was going to make a sandwich for himself. Those three guys probably found something interesting. Pass me the blueberry sauce, thank you. How is the map of your castle? Can you lend me a look? Angelina pushed the bottle of blueberry sauce over on her right hand, and pointed her finger at the parchment paper on Albert's left hand. I still think I should go around the castle by myself. This is one of the joys of the new life. Albert handed the parchment to the girl opposite, and took the bottle of blueberry sauce. What's that? Alia put her head over, staring at this simple sketch. Frowning slightly, she was struggling to see, but she could also see some signs of secret passages in classrooms, where the stairs had to be crossed. By the way, this is our timetable. Albert copied 2 more timetables and handed them to the 2 opposite people. What kind of magic is that? Angelina asked curiously. Copying a spell can turn one item into 2 pieces. Alia, who was born into a wizard family, recognized the spell used by Albert at a glance. Not all wizard families adopt a stocking policy like Weasley. Alia has been educated as a good wizard since she was a child, starting from a higher level than most students. A very useful trick, isn't it? Albert blinked at the 2 of them and continued, with it, you don't need to take notes, just ask someone to borrow a copy. Alia looked at Albert with weird eyes, always feeling that this guy's thinking logic is different from others. Can you get a copy for me? So I don't need to worry about finding a place in the classroom. Don't you worry about the wrong map? Albert asked rhetorically. Of course I will confirm it myself. Alia said naturally. Do you want it? Albert looked at Angelina. Thank you, Angelina said with a smile. Hogwarts Castle is indeed not small. New students are easy to get lost. With Albert's map, at least know where to go. Being late on the first day of school is not a good sign. By the way, I remember that you seem to come from a Muggle family. Alia put away the map and asked, how can you master so many spells? I dare say that most of the new NTS understand the spells you don't many. Before school, I learned when practicing spells. Most of the spells are pretty simple. Albert spread blueberry sauce on the bread slice and took a big bite. Although the taste was good, it was really good to eat all day long. I can't bear it. Simple. The 2 looked at each other and suddenly felt an inexplicable pressure. After getting their own magic wand, most freshmen will try to use the magic in the book. Angelina and Alia are naturally no exception. They both learned some simple magic, but they are by no means as light as Albert said. The is as easy as learning magic and eating a piece of bread. After destroying the slice of bread covered with blueberry jam, Albert made himself a sandwich. British lunches are always unsatisfactory, and Hogwarts is no exception. Bread and potatoes are always the staple food here. This lunch includes bread slices, boiled potatoes, fresh vegetable salad, and salted ham. Of course, a large pot of MILK or pumpkin juice is indispensable. After Albert finished the ham sandwich, he put 2 potatoes with skins on his plate. After wandering in the castle all morning, his stomach was already starving. In other words, during the meal, the 3 of them were not seen, and they didn't know where they went. "I really miss the rice and pasta," Albert muttered in a low voice, and continued to wipe the potatoes with the skin on the plate. Potatoes are one of the staple foods of the British. He has eaten them almost every day in these years. People in this country can even use potatoes to make 100 dishes without repetition. Although potatoes are not unpalatable, it is a bit unbearable to eat all meals. "The pasta is delicious," Angelina agreed. "I have eaten it several times, and it tastes very nostalgic. British cuisine is always disappointing, and the variety is so good. The chefs here never seriously study how to cook." Albert poured himself a cup of milk tea, took a sip, and said, "I remember I ate a plate of whole fish grilled in a sea salt herb crust a while ago." The two looked at each other with interest and listened with interest to Albert complaining about all sorts of exotic foods in the UK. Such as his father's favorite French fries sandwiches, and the whole family only liked Marmite, which his grandmother liked. Albert still remembers the first time he tasted Marmite sauce. It was the taste of hell. That taste is really unforgettable for a lifetime. If you insist on describing it, it should be a strong soy sauce mixed with various body odors. Since then, Albert has stayed away from Marmite. If any of you are interested, at Christmas, I will send her a bottle as a Christmas gift. Cough cough. Alia suddenly lost her appetite. "No, thank you, I still want to eat some normal food. So that I don't get sick after seeing jam." After drinking milk tea, the lunch is over. Albert sat at the dining table and looked at the photos he had previously taken. There are knight armor, castle scenery, a certain portrait, or a certain exaggerated sculpture. These photos reveal a corner of Hogwarts. It's just that Angelina really wanted to complain when he saw Albert was choosing photos. "You guys are not a student coming to school at all, more like tourists visiting Hogwarts Castle." Chapter 30. Phantom. The Gryffindor common room was crowded with students in the afternoon. And everyone was sitting on the sofa chatting. The sofa seating in the lounge is limited, there are too many people, and it is crowded and noisy. Albert has no idea of staying in the common room. He posted the first-year class schedule on the bulletin board, and put the camera and photos on the bulletin board. After returning to the dormitory, I went directly to the library on the 5th floor of the castle. There are no other students in the library, and yes, even Ravenclaw students, few will enter the library before the official start of school. There is only Mrs. Irma Pins, the administrator. In the library, she sits alone behind the counter and reads quietly. As Albert walked to the counter, Pinschoff raised his head, seeming a little surprised that someone would come to the library at this time. "Madam, excuse me, I'm looking for some books on spells. Do you know which shelf they are on?" Albert asked softly. Actually, Albert can find it by himself, but there are a lot of books here. Which is time-consuming, laborious and unpleasant. It is the fastest way to ask the librarian directly. Mrs. Pins glanced at Albert, raised her finger to a row of wooden bookshelves and said, "Area C." The 5th bookshelf. Albert looked in the direction of the opponent's finger, and after thanking him, he walked towards the bookshelf in Area C. His gaze paused. He stopped for a moment on the rope leading to the restricted area, and continued to walk in. In the 5th shelf, there are many books about spells. When Albert stretched his hand across the spine of the book, his fingers couldn't help but pause. Because his panel unexpectedly popped up with 2 tasks. Reading Madman. As you who like to read, how can you miss the largest magic library in the entire UK? Aft. Reading a total of 100 books of 1-inch thickness. Rewards to master 3 kinds of magic randomly, and raise them to level 3. Currently, 0/100ths magic restricted area. There are a lot of secrets hidden in the forbidden area of Hogwarts. As a magic lover, how can you miss it? If you can borrow a few books from it to study carefully, it will help to improve your magic level. Successfully persuaded 5 professors to allow you to lend 5 books from the restricted area. Bonus skill level +1 level. Currently, 0/5. In other words, both missions are sinkholes. It's not easy to finish reading 100 books, and it's also 1 inch thick. Is this asking him to finish reading 100 brick books? Can smash people to death. This task can't be completed for a while, and it can be read within 3 years. I have to thank Merlin for her protection. The second task is even worse. It's not easy to get the banned book from the professors to borrow notes. Moreover, it is not easy to get signed notes from 5 professors. In Albert's image, the easiest is probably Guidro Lockhart. However, the difficulty is high, the rewards are also rich, the skill level is increased by 1, which is much stronger than the skill points. Not considering these tasks yet, Albert eliminated distractions and drew out a book of spells. The name of this book is Selected Curses of the 18th Century. He opened the catalog and counted. There were 33 kinds of spells on it. Each of them recorded in detail the creator of the spell, how to use the spell correctly, and what meaning its invention brought. After reading the catalog, Albert lost interest in the book. He did not find the phantom charm in the catalog. Although other spells are good, they are not useful for the current Albert. It takes a lot of time and energy to learn these spells, or use the stored experience pool. Although there is still a lot of experience in the experience pool, Albert doesn't want to use it. Throwing the Selected Curses of the 18th Century back into the bookshelf, Albert pulled out another, The Achievement of the Curses, which is a book introducing the spells, and Albert found the phantom charm in it. Unfortunately, the book does not introduce the method of casting the phantom spell, only introduces some attempts of the spell. However, from the information provided above, Albert found the really vant records of the phantom mantra in Selected Curses of the 19th Century. This is undoubtedly good news. Albert took the Selected Curses of the 19th Century and sat at the desk in the library, turning over the books and reading them carefully. The invention of phantom mantra is inspired by the chameleon. The mantra can make people blend into the surrounding environment to achieve the effect of invisibility. The clever wizard uses the phantom spell and it is not easy to be spotted, but it is difficult to hide it from others because the body cannot blend into the surroundings. And it will make people feel inexplicably abrupt. While Albert concentrated on reading the related knowledge of the mantra, he was pulled away from the chair. He looked up and found that the other person was the Ravenclaw girl he met in the auditorium this morning. Seemed to perceive Albert's gaze, and the other party also looked up, nodded slightly at Albert, and returned his attention to the book. It's Ravenclaw, as expected. Albert muttered in a low voice, and continued to read the precautions for the phantom mantra, preparing to find a place to practice. Next, all that needs to be done is to find the cure for the phantom spell, although the duration of the phantom body spell will not be too long. If you do not master the way to solve the spell, you may need to wait for the effect of the spell to disappear before it can automatically appear. This is not a good idea. Reading www.uakanshu.com. There is no relevant record at the end of the spell, but Albert found the mantra in Achievement of the Curse. Albert took the Selected Curses of the 19th Century and went to Mrs. Pins to go through the procedures for borrowing books. He picked up a stone outside the castle as a target for practice. Naturally, he would not be stupid enough to use the spells he did not master. Use it on yourself. As Albert was considering where to practice the spell, the Weasley twins and Lee Jordan appeared in the hall panting. Where did you go at noon? Albert looked at the three and asked. 5th floor, mirror. George ran out of breath and couldn't even speak. Where does that passage lead? Albert asked. Outside the castle. Let's go to Hogsmeade Village. There was an excited smile on Fred's face. The first day they came to Hogwarts, they found a secret road leading outside the school. Albert raised his eyebrows and said, "So, you have played in Hogsmeade for a few hours before returning?" "No, that secret road is very long. We walked for at least 1 hour." Really amazing." Albert managed to squeeze out this sentence. It would be a torment for him to walk for an hour. After all, as a salted fish, who can sit on the sofa and read a book, why bother to drill into the secret path? And it takes 2 hours to come and go. Why is this? This is my work. Albert raised the book in his hand and said, I borrowed it in the library. You found that spell. Fred realized what Albert was referring to. I found it. Albert admired Fred's wit a little, however, it is a bit difficult to master this spell. If you want to learn it, you have to be a little psychologically prepared.